So I thought I could probably try and play this. And you know when you fall in love, doesn't happen very often, but I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this guy on the telly and I'm just, wow. So ticking all the boxes. I've got to go and find this man wherever. I've got to go and meet him.
So you were actually following where the guitar plays?
I think so.
Right, because you did mention, you know nothing about S.E Rogers.
No.
Nothing about African music at all. But indeed, you were just in love with the guitar. I
think so. And also the antenna went up and it didn't sound, there was something about it that was like, it went beyond, or it went deeper, actually, than anything I'd heard before in terms of really touching me. The other guitarist that appeared in London at that time was Ali Farka Touré from Mali.
Yeah.
And I used to go and see them both. And I introduced them to each other, and that's another story. That's one of my favourite moments. Because what happened was I learned to play Roji's music.
Yeah.
And he was playing in London, and I thought, I've got to go and meet him. And he was playing quite near here on Kennington Common. It was an open-air festival, 1989. And I went along with, I think, a copy of this album. Let's just plug these albums, because I don't know if people can see this.
Yeah, we're live actually on YouTube. So Feferity Radio live on YouTube if you want to see what we look like in a studio.
The 60 Sounds of S.E Rogers. That was the album that was available at the time, and I went along with that and I asked for his autograph. Now he was in a bad mood the day I met him.
So
I turned up.
Talk us, I mean, we have a lot to take in. I mean, I'm sure now that you've settled in, I mean, listen, I want to say welcome anyway to Feferity Radio.
Yeah, I'm talking too much.
Now that you've settled, you can see that this is going to be a very tasty conversation of a man who have served the music fraternity all over the world and gave us so much joy and still exists today. So we're going to know more and also learn a lot more as well from James here in the studio. So when you tell us the very day that you had of S.E Rogers, you saw him on telly?
It was a show called Rhythms of the World. I think Baba Mal and the late great Mr. Sek were on there. He just passed away. And then it was in two halves, and then they just showed this guy playing 3 or 4 songs. And I was transfixed. It was like the first time I ever heard Elvis, the first time I heard the Beatles. You know, to me, he was on a par in terms of charisma. The songs were so funny. Borderline, you know, they were quite cheeky, you know. What was that one? Please Don't Touch Me, Tomato. I know you love me, I love you too. It's so nice to be in love now. Talk to me, play with me, touch everywhere but not me, tomato. Yes, darling, I'm warning you, 'cause if you do, I will tell me, mama. You know, and I'm giggling. This guy's funny. It's cheeky. It's not quite. You could play it to kids. They'd kind of go, "Oh, this is nice," but he had a really cheeky thing about him. And then he laid this song on everyone at the end of this set called "My Lovely Elizabeth," and suddenly we went from cheeky, saucy music to this really painful, beautiful, aching love song about betrayal. And I just thought, whoever this guy is, wherever this guy is, I'm going to go and meet him. So yeah, I went to this open air thing, and he didn't like the sound on the day. I could hear the music as I walked from one side of Kennington Park to the other. It was a festival, there were stalls, people everywhere, music going on. Summer's day, early summer.
What year was that?
When we had summers, in 1989.
1989.
And I could hear, and he was sound checking, but I recognized the music, and it was just like, you know, when you're following the gravy in those cartoons, the people, you can actually see the smell, and the people are kind of pursuing this. And I went and found him and watched, and I went and talked to him by a caravan while he was not happy. He didn't like the sound. He didn't like the setup. The stool was uncomfortable. He wasn't happy.
I mean, back in the days, I'm not sure whether, you know, because of people who were not conversant with that kind of music, but a lot of musicians back in the days wasn't too pleased with the sound, especially the engineers. I'm not sure.
I think he had some terrible, you know, he had some, we've all had problems with, I mean, Peter Green used to just throw things at the sound man and the early Fleetwood Mac gigs. You know, if he didn't like the sound, he'd just pick up a bottle and lob it at whoever was doing the song. So yeah, mate, you know. But Roji, no, we had a little chat. And what I noticed was that he was polite and everything, but we didn't really click, and I wanted to click with him. I knew that there was some more to this. I would have to try again. And then someone from Sierra Leone came and started talking to him, and his face lit up, and they started speaking Creole to each other, and I thought, okay, I'll wait. So I didn't see him again until the winter. And he was playing at the Half Moon in Putney. And I walked along with my girlfriend, and it was a cold winter's night, and there was a guy walking in front of us in the dark down the Lower Richmond Road. And I looked, and it's him. And I just turned and said, Roji? He goes, yeah. And we stopped and we talked. And he used to get nervous before shows. So he was going...
Why is that?
I don't know, but he was walking around the block just to get some air before the night, because he was worried that he wasn't going to succeed. This thing of coming to England had to work,
sure,
or else. And so he was very kind. He was pleased to see us, and he said, "Well, I'm playing here tonight." I said, "Yeah, I know. That's why we're here." So we went in, paid our money, and we sat down. And then he came on stage, and it was sparsely attended. It was winter, so there were about 15 people there.
Mm.
He said, please, I'm very lonely up here. Could you all come and sit here in front of me? Can we pretend we're just at home having fun? So everyone came and sat, and he was talking, and he said, so James, what song do you want to hear now? Wow, and he remembered our names from meeting.
Yeah.
And afterwards, he was signing a few autographs.
Trying to create a sort of, like you said, a family sort of atmosphere, familiarity.
He explained that palm wine music, what he used to say is that this is what happens of an evening. You sit around on a beach by the fire, and people might be a bit shy to speak. But if you pass the palm wine round, good, and people take a hit of that or two, and then he said, and then loosens their tongues.
Yeah.
Suddenly, because everyone has to tell a story or share something. It's almost like an AA meeting, but with alcohol. You know, everyone has to share, but it's not over the top. Your children were at these events. It wasn't a bawdy, horrible thing. It was just a very nice, warm family atmosphere. And if you've got a problem, you share it. I'm having terrible problems. I lost my job, whatever. You talk to each other like we all used to in the old days, and you ease each other's burdens. So he really created this lovely, glowing atmosphere in that. After the show, he signed something. I said, it's a bit cheeky. I said, excuse me, mister. Could I have a little look at your guitar? He goes, yeah, fine. And he probably thought I was going to play, I don't know, Stairway to Heaven or That's of the Rising Sun. And I started playing some of his music.
Wow.
You know.
So when you said is this something that you studied before that gig, actually?
Oh, I'd been trying to work out at home how his songs went.
Right.
Based on what I'd been taught. Now, my guitar teacher, Brian, for instance, said you should never use your thumb. Where's the...
Here.
Where am I? There.
Yeah.
I don't know if people can see, but you never use your thumb to play the bass note.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
There you
I'm
go.
just saying, just for the technical thing, Brian would say you've got to bar the chord like this, using your finger to play the F chord.
Right.
That's difficult. And people do this instead. They'll use their thumb to get the bass note. And he said, no, you should never do that. And a bunch of other people told me, no, don't use, no.
Don't use the thumb.
And Roji said, no, you have to use your thumb.
Right.
To play the stuff that I'm playing, because it frees the other fingers up to do other things. You know.
Well,
he used to roll the bass line.
That sounds like Please Go Easy With Me.
It is.
Well, let's just give the listeners a bit of taste of the man himself, S.E Rogers.
Sing on, boys, sing.
Now, mister, please go easy with me. I said, please go easy with me. I quite agree that you can dance very well. So please go easy with me. I kindly kick back every bill. I don't love the way you hold in my hips and why you do rough me like it. I don't love the way you touch in my breast and I'll try to be at your best. Oh, Mr. Please go easy. If I say you're easy with me. It is true that the music is sweet. What can they give me a release? Yeah, baby girl. Now what I see is that you're getting too hot. So please suppress your feeling. I say, Mister, please suppress your. So, Mister, I say, suppress your. I don't like the way you hold in my hips, and why should you rough me like this? I don't like the way you touch in my breast, and I try to be at your best. Oh, Mister, please go easy. Oh, Mister, please go easy with me. All right.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, that is just a taste, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of the man himself, S.E Rogers.
Yeah. Well, I started playing, I think it was that song. And he told me later, he said, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And what's this 19-year-old white kid doing? Skinny white boy as I was. What's he doing playing this music? Where does he? And he was a bit flustered and he looked a little bit freaked out, like it was some Twilight Zone thing. Because this is a song that he'd recorded in 1961 or something in Freetown, you know. And suddenly there's me playing it. And then the penny dropped. And he just realized the only reason this young guy's playing this music, he must love it. And once he realized that I was in love with the music, then he just took me aside. He said, "This is my phone number." He gave me his phone number, his address. I want you to call me. I want you to come to my house, and I want to teach you how to play this properly, because you were getting that bit all wrong, you know. And so I'd go around and see him. Yeah. And we'd play, and if I made a little mistake, like if he was here now, he'd be saying, "No, you got that." He'd make me do it again, and it was like being at school. Yeah. You know, he was that much older than me, and well, no, you again, do it again. And I'd try and cut corners. And he was so meticulous with his own playing. Sure. If you listen to, the last album he made, his playing is exquisite. And he never messed up live. He never fluffed any lines. His control with his breathing, his voice, he worked so hard perfecting this and fine tuning it. And he didn't want any corner cutting. You couldn't bluff this. And so he really, really hammered it home to me, and then he'd cook for me, and then he'd fall asleep in front of the telly.
He was a master of his craft, isn't he? Yeah. I mean, you talked earlier on about these samples. Well, and what we just played, Please Go Easy With Me. Yeah. You mentioned also that was, and there was so many African artists, say from the 50s on, because back then there was no computer, no internet where you can know what is what. So you just give credence and the credit to the musicians that come up with the tunes, right? And here was what we just had, Please Go Easy With Me, Vampire Weekend. I think they sample in one of their tracks, isn't it, called Richmond?
That's right.
Should we just play a little bit of that?
If you've got that up there, then... So this is actually Rogie playing, and they've sampled him.
It's all there, isn't it?
This is him. So millions of people have heard and bought this now.
I was young, I was told I'd find one rich man in 10 as a satisfied mind, and I'm the one.
It's a great sounding record, but I mean, of course it is, because of Rogie.
I mean, the question is,
go on.
Did they in any way credit it?
Well,
S.E Rogers.
What happened? They got in touch with me. Their management got in touch with me through a Facebook page I'd set up, said, we'd like to get permission to use Roji on one of our tracks, but we want to make sure that we give him full credit, and we want to make sure that we share the royalties properly with his family, widow, children. Can you help us get in touch with them? So I gave them some details of the son, the daughter, the widow. And, I've got 4 kids. If I had ever done anything that made any money and I was dead and gone, I'd want that to be
So
shared.
the deed credit.
I'd like that to be split 4 ways between my children.
Sure.
And, in an ideal world, that would be the situation. Anyway, they got the permission. They got the go ahead.
Yeah.
And that album and this song, the number of people that now love S.E Roji, because they'll look this up on YouTube and they'll try and then they'll see who it's, because he's been given full credit.
Yeah.
They're now going out and buying S.E Roji albums. There's a young filmmaker called Jared Fanko who wants to make a documentary about Roji, and he got into them because of this song. He got into S.E Roji because of this, and now he listens to all of Roji's stuff and he wants to make a film about him. So you can't really argue with that. And the money, a lot of money's been generated. Where it's gone is another
Well,
thing.
it's very difficult, for the younger, bands and musicians these days to get away with such things like this, isn't it? Back in the days, of course, you can get away with it. But I'm actually glad that...
I think Roji would say, no, they're good boys. So no, they've been good boys about this. Because they could have just got someone else to play this and tried to get away with it.
Yeah.
No, and these days you can't really do that anymore.
Right, that was
And
a
I think-
Vampire Weekend
I
actually
think-
with Rich Man there. A sample of S.E Rogers. Please Go Easy With Me. Something that Sierra Leone should be very proud of, isn't it?
I think ultimately, well, it's a bit like, Paul Simon got into trouble for, the Graceland album, but again, it meant that a lot of people heard African music for the first time that wouldn't have done. And he actually got into trouble in the 60s. Paul Simon came over here in the 1960s and was going around the folk clubs, and Martin Carthy, who's still alive, had a song called Are You Going to Scarborough Fair? And he had a guitar part worked out, parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme. He still does it. I saw him do it this year, aged 80-something. Paul Simon went to dinner with a friend of his that night and said, excuse me, Mr. Carthy, could you teach me that song, Scarborough Fair? Oh, sure, son, okay. And just thought he's a tourist. And Paul Simon's got a great voice and he's a great player and so on. But Martin Carthy told the story that Paul Simon went back to America the next day and copyrighted it. And if pushed, I'm still really, really angry with him. Yeah. And so they had this feud for 30 years, and then they made up at the Albert Hall and sang the song together. But no, this happened a lot. And actually, with Roji, one of the singles of his that I loved was, and it's on this new album, because the Vampire Weekend track generated so much interest in Roji again, that finally, Volume 2 of the 60 Sounds of S.E Roji was put together. It's called Further Sounds of S.E Roji. It's on Mississippi Records, and what they've done using AI technology is they've removed the surface noise so that all you've got now is the beautiful music. Before, when they used to do this, they'd turn the treble down and they'd compress everything. So you'd lose the surface noise, but you'd also lose a lot of the music. These days, with the programs they've got, the Beatles did this recently with that John Lennon vocal where it now sounds like he's in the room, so Paul and Ringo finished the song. They've done the same thing with S.E Roji's music, removed the crackles and the surface noise. And this album, I've just bought you a copy. It's absolutely glorious. And one of the songs is about Constance Cummings, John.
All right.
A woman there who I met. She came to Roji's wake keeping, and she was living in Tooting, she got the taxi over after Roji had died, and she was the guest of honour in the flat in Catford. And he made a record about her that was sort of, long live a woman, may her, Constance Cummings, John. Well, when I heard Ebenezer Calendar going, Lily pepper and lily salt, dry bunga go match them, I thought, okay, Roji's kind of done this himself maybe, but he made a record about the woman mayor and was bigging her up. And this is at a time when we had politicians and people that we could believe in, and
that's right.
And there was hope and optimism. beautiful, happy times and great records. And I'm sure Kalenda, you know, someone said to me, Fire, Fire, Fire was preceded him. He didn't write it. Who knows? It's great music. And the torch has to be passed somehow. And so these young guys have done their thing. And now Roji's music is licensed. It's appeared in a bunch of films. Palm Spring is a very famous film. It's a couple of major, what you might call Hollywood movies that are out now. And they'll, as the credits are running, they'll play Man, Stupid Being or one of Roji's songs. And people are watching this going, what is this? This is great. And it comes up. And now, you know, the records are selling. It's generating income finally. It's 30 years too late for Roji. But not only is there income coming in, the music's being heard by far more people than he could have imagined in a world that he couldn't have imagined.
You know, because again, when you go back to Roji's early days in Freetown, you know, the father, you know, was a community leader, you know, and also the name was Paka.
That's right.
You know, and that was the Mende tribe, and that settled in the eastern part of Sierra Leone.
That's right.
And Paka translates to Rogers, so you will hear a lot of the Mendes, you know, with the name Rogers, you know, and they were great people. So let's come back to yourself. At the age of 11, what drives your love for the guitar? Is it coming through the family line, or is it something that, because you talked about drawing before, is it something that you just
I used to spend
gravitate towards?
Well, I know, like with my daughter, she's an amazing girl. And she'll be cross with me for saying, what about my brothers? And Dan, Sam, and Joseph are beautiful boys. I was speaking to my friend Adeku the other day, and she said, children are a gift from God. You know, don't forget that. But that's why Rosie spends her time drawing. And she loves her music. She loves the Spice Girls. She loves Michael Jackson, you know. And she says she likes me, but that's probably so that I'll get her a pizza and take her to the cinema and stuff. No, I'm kidding. She's absolutely lovely. But that's very much how I used to spend Sunday afternoons. My grandparents lived next door. So I thought everyone's grandparents lived next door. And so I'd go and hang out with my grandma, and she'd be cooking. And I'd go into their front room. We had one of these old record players from the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
And
It's like every home used to have that, isn't it? Well, like a radio.
My Auntie Anne had left, there was a record collection. It had all the Tamla Motown, all the soul music, a couple of blues things, and Beatles. And the first music that I really, really loved was the Beatles. And all the albums were there, so I would put the records on. Same era as these early Roji things. I mean, the 60s, for some reason, there was a golden era everywhere. So I would I'd learn how to draw the faces of all the Beatles and listen to the music. And that was me on a Sunday afternoon. That's all I wanted to do. And I probably would have stuck with that. And then, you know, there was the horrible murder. John Lennon's coming home and he gets shot in the back. He's gone home to see his boy and tuck him into bed. I was just young when I heard that news, and it was a thump in the guts. You know, still makes me cross, funnily enough.
So how did you achieve
So I decided, well, I'm going to get a guitar now. That was it. My mum could see that I was upset. The art teacher called me out of my class.
Okay, so it's through the death of
it's interesting,
Lennon.
isn't it? It was that, and my art teacher knew that I loved drawing, and he came over to the main block of the school I was in and said, he pretended I was in trouble, and he got me out of a maths class. I need to speak to him. James, Mr. Robertson needs to see you. And as we walked from one side of the road to the other, I said, yeah, I heard the news this morning, mate. I thought you might be upset. Come and spend the day in the art block, and I'll say it to detention. And he let me listen to Beatles records.
Oh, wow.
I saw him a few years ago, and big hug. Thank you for that, mate.
Yeah.
So my mum looked up a guitar teacher, and I went and met this guy, Brian.
Is this something that you suggested, or was Mum that actually sourced
I think it's hard to remember, but she was very, I was going to say instrumental. No pun intended, but she just looked up. She thought it'd be good for me. Because I was not into sport. I was not into football. I was hopeless at all of those things. And it was a creative outlet. So I started having lessons once a week. And Brian played me so much great music I would never have heard. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a guitar being played up close. He played a Muddy Waters song, you know, old blues guy. And Brian had written a bunch of his own songs, but he'd been, I think he'd been stung by the music industry. I think he decided to not even try because it hurt too much. And I did meet a lot of musicians that had had bad experiences.
Mm.
But, you know, if you play music, you keep playing. Brian had good friends that had been in other bands. Brian died years ago, but I went and saw, I'll tell you, funny enough, you know, the Rolling Stones are touring now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like all the legends
80s,
as well, yeah.
In their 80s. And Keith Richards is still up there, aged 80.
Smokey Robinson as well, toured the other day as well.
Did he?
84, I think.
You know, I met him. I met Smokey. Great guy. But they're all still doing it. But the Stones are playing in front of thousands of people in big stadiums. And it's starting to sound a bit ropey, but I was in a pub in Rains Park a couple of weeks ago. And there was a guy there called Dick Taylor, who was a friend of my guitar teacher's from back in the day. And he's 82. And he's a little guy, and he gets up on stage with this band. And the filthy, dirty, brilliant, raucous blues music he played, R&B, you know, really hardcore, coming out of this little fella. I was like, wow. And he'd been in a band when he was a young man called the Rolling Stones. So he was one of the original members. And he decided to leave this band, the Rolling Stones, and go to art college instead.
Right.
But he's still playing, and he's playing much better than they are. But he's in a little pub in Rains Park. He's down at the Cavern. And it, you know, cost me nothing to get in there. You've got to buy a drink or the manager will throw you out. But no. But isn't it interesting? If you love music, doesn't matter whether you're a huge success or not. You don't stop playing if you're doing it for the right reasons. That's what I think anyway. So Roji just carried on, and, you know, he had great success in the 60s.
So in terms of going back to the guitar, Mom got you a guitar, right?
Well, I went and bought a guitar. She gave me some money, and I went down to Wimbledon Arcade, as it was. It got
right.
It's not there anymore. I think it got the arson. It got burnt down to build a car park. So I bought my first guitar there. It was rubbish, and then I got hold of it.
Can you remember the name of the guitar?
It was hopeless. It had no name on it.
Well, that got you started, though, isn't it?
Well, actually, Brian, my guitar teacher, knew everybody, and he knew the guy that sold me the guitar, and phoned him up and said, "Johnny, you're a bad man. How could you sell this young man? He knows nothing about. You should know better than to blah blah blah." Because the bridge was sliding up and down, and it was a piece of junk. So he knew someone who was selling a guitar, and I got hold of that. Took me a while to learn how to do it, and I didn't enjoy it for the first few months. Some people can pick a guitar up, and they just got a natural, like I probably have with drawing and visual art, and yabbering. I'm good at talking, right? But for the guitar, I don't think I was naturally cut out for it, but it was something I decided I really wanted to do. Friends of mine could just pick a guitar up first time, and they'd be playing it brilliantly within a week. It took me a while, but I stuck with it.
Indeed.
And then I wanted to get the same thrill with music that I got when I first heard the Beatles, and I first heard, you know, and I thought, I'm not going to get that thrill again until I heard S.E. And then Ali Farka came along. And they seemed to me, they were like the Beatles and the Stones to me. And the difference was they were here, they were now. They're coming to London, they're going to be playing. And I went along and saw them all. Every time they were in London, every time Ali Farka came here, I'd go and get him backstage and play for him. And he invited me to Mali, but I didn't go. I didn't make it past Croydon, you know, in those days. The thing about being young is that you think that these great situations are going to be there forever. You don't realize the finite nature of the great people, especially if they're a bit, you know, getting on a bit. And you have to, if you get an opportunity in front of you, you have to do something about it there and then. Don't put it off.
So why a man from Wimbledon, London, you know, there are many more genres you could have actually, you know, have a go at and be good at.
I think, go on.
But yeah, I mean, your love, as it seems now, is what you're really good at, it seems like, the palm wine music.
Well,
Why, palm wine music for you? Or the style, actually?
well, I mean, I will say that I do play a lot of other styles of music. The thing that bothers me, but it's not really received, like I was saying earlier. Everybody knows all these other genres because they've had their moment in the sun. They've had their full exposure. They've been given a chance. And what was happening in Sierra Leone in the early 90s, that civil war, the conflict, I think the culture, quite apart from the physical, emotional, the trauma of the whole thing, just on a cultural level, and you know more about this than I would, but the way it seemed to me was that in Ghana, for instance, there are young kids, they're in their 20s, playing palm wine guitar under the tutelage of Aja Kunimo, that they didn't have the same difficulties that happened in Sierra Leone. And I think the culture suffered. And it was almost like it was cut off.
But I think
the palm wine music, like the first time I was speaking to you about it, I said, if there was someone else, if there were young guys, or, I'm not young anymore, but you know what I mean, playing this music from Sierra Leone, I wouldn't have to do it. I just thought, somebody's got to hear this, was my rationale. Like the Rolling Stones back in the day.
Well, it's good for the UK, actually, listeners to get to understand what you're doing. But in Sierra Leone, even before the war, I think music was not as appreciated as it were in, say, Ghana, Nigeria, Guinea, Senegal, and places like that. Because if you talk to a lot of the musicians of yesterday, and I've spoken to a few of them where music was not by the then government, like Sheikh Toure, for example, these leaders, in Nkrumah, they invested in musicians. They encouraged musicians to pass on the message, especially coming out of the independence, giving them a sense of being, a sense of self. And that message can only be transmitted through musicians. Whilst in Sierra Leone, you will find out that in the 60s, a lot of musicians were not encouraged, were discouraged. And so therefore, the music that they were singing was a music of protest, rather than music of love, caring, and all the things.
No, that's understandable.
And then that became more or less the culture. When you listen to a majority of the songs from Sierra Leone, even young people today, it's all about protest again.
It's a lot of anger,
Well, it's more political protest rather than, and not maybe for the right reasons. Well, and so that became the culture. So when you talk about palm wine music, I mean, some Ghanaians will reference Sierra Leone. We've had Nigerians who reference Sierra Leone. But Sierra Leoneans themselves will be very, it will be hard for them to see, what other people are saying and embrace it as one of us. I mean, this is what we are now enjoying as Afrobeat. Sierra Leone has a significant, like most other areas anyway, role to play in this all. So I think it's about the culture that has been there for a time, and what the young people or young musicians have listened to, and how the same behavior keep perpetuating itself into music.
Yeah, I know. It is about balance, because you need to have protest as well. In Nigeria, I suppose you had Fela.
Yeah. I mean, I spoke to a lot of young musicians as well, where because they're playing the original, authentic sounds from Sierra Leone, they don't get, they don't get the airplay or the attention that it needed. But one that will talk about, politicians and all of that, they will be the ones that will get noticed. So there is this imbalance of what is Sierra Leone music at the moment.
Yeah, I know. I suppose, I mean, I started listening once I'd heard Roji's music, and I often think music doesn't really recognize borders as much. A lot of the music that I heard from the 40s and 50s, Nigeria, Ghana, it's very much similar. So, George Sibanda, is he Kenyan? very similar sounds at a rootsy level. And in Nigeria, you've got the sweet, joyful love. You know, you've got Ebenezer Obey as well as Fela, so there is that balance. In terms of Sierra Leone music, one of the other problems was you really couldn't find any of it anywhere, and I was so desperate to hear this stuff. And even Roji's, you know, he had a handful of 45s that no one. I mean, still to this day, there's a Praise Be Sheku Toure single there, which I brought you to listen to. He made records about these people, and you're right, the optimism and the joy and the hope in those records, it's beautiful, but it's sort of heartbreaking given the way things turned out, you know. And he left Sierra Leone having achieved so many great things.
I mean, again, you know, with Roji and as many other, you know, musicians, you know, have left with a very heavy heart. And because when they look back, the people, you know, never really appreciate the music as they should. Awesome. So a lot of, because then when you see, you know, Ghanaian musicians talking about Sierra Leone music, referencing Ghana and all those countries, even Congo, but yet, you know, so a lot of musicians are in this sort of like position where, you know, the future of whether they're going to be recognized of what their contribution to music has been, you know, I think that is that is the sort of position, uncertainty that they rest upon. Yeah. And it's not fantastic because, I mean, I bless him, and then, you know, peace be with him, you know, Bonnie Mac. Yeah. I spoke to Bonnie Mac, and when Sierra Leone had their 50th independence anniversary, he was in Sierra Leone to perform with King Masco and the Champ. And the young people never even recognized who he was. No. And it's few musicians they will recognize. And even that, they don't give them, you know, the kind of dues and respect.
And when I used
exactly.
To, when I'd hop the bus with Roji, go around and see him on a Sunday morning, and we'd go to the market, and I'm getting on the bus with him. And for me, it was like getting on the bus with John Lennon, or, you know, why is nobody else I mean, this guy is a legend. And
at that time in London,
I was the only person who knew who he was. And the only times that, there were 2 times when I took him to Carnival one year, 91, I think, because he was supposed to play, but he either hadn't got the call to come and play, or he hadn't read you know, he didn't have management, and he was living on his own, and he just missed the opportunity to play in Powis Square by the Tabernacle. He'd played the Tabernacle, I think, but he would have loved that, and he was really upset. So I took him to Carnival the next day on the Sunday, and that's when he kept getting stopped by Sierra Leoneans. Roji, like this, and suddenly he went from being this sort of fish out of water, a bit awkward, and then suddenly you could see his face lit up, and they'd start talking in Creole and hugging and slapping their hands together, and then there was another time when I think it was the 30th anniversary of independence, and I got to know him quite well by then, so I was helping him every time he had a gig. I'd sell records or CDs and help him with his luggage and equipment, go out and get him some food. So we went to the Odeon in Leicester Square, and there was a big ball there for Sierra Leone, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people there. And he'd put a band together, the Palm Wine Tappers. Roji had a band. And I said to him before the show, and I really, you know, it's not really my place to say this, but this is about Sierra Leone and it's about you. Maybe you should sing My Lovely Elizabeth. And he said, no, I just want to do my new music. You know, like you get bands saying, I'm just going to do the new album now. Like Bob Dylan, he's only doing the new album, and everyone there is wanting to hear him sing his old songs. So he does, and he sings them so different that no one recognizes them anyway, right? He's such an old curmudgeon. But I said to Roddy, maybe just open the show before the band comes on. Just sing Elizabeth. And he didn't like singing the song because it still broke his heart. It's a true story, My Lovely Elizabeth. And it was about his best friend and his girlfriend. And he used to like hanging out with his mate, and his girlfriend would be with him. And then they'd hang out together, and all his friends were saying to him, you know, you've got to watch out here, something's happening. And he didn't want to believe it. And he went off on tour, and he came back, and they were shacked up together. So they'd moved in together,
Mm.
his best friend and his girlfriend. Her name was actually Zuma, and he used the name Elizabeth, I guess for commercial reasons. But rather than just,
And most people thought was about the Queen.
well, I think that he chose the name because Elizabeth, and she'd been to Sierra Leone and visited, and there were still people
course.
there that were very pleased to see her. And
Is that a story that he told you?
he played for her. He performed.
No, about the
Yeah.
Elizabeth, the
Yeah.
girlfriend, right?
Well, Zuma was her name, and he didn't. It was a bad memory because every time he sang it, he really felt it. You could see it really upset him. But I said, "Look, I know. Maybe just open with it." And luckily, I had a little, Walkman for recording, and it's up on YouTube somewhere where I record him singing it at this show. And nobody really recognized him, and nobody maybe even. But everyone had learnt that song. They'd learned it at school. I've met Sierra Leoneans that used to sing it in school.
Shall we play that?
Why
Let's
not? Well,
because I actually thought
here we go.
I am deeply worried at heart. I say I'm deeply worried at heart. 'Cause the girl I love so well, my friend has snatched from me. Now I scarcely know what to do. Better hang my head and cry for my lovely Elizabeth. Some people say there are many guys that are really crazy after me, but I'm not interested in any, save my lovely Elizabeth, my sweet Elizabeth. Pela gbami me mata mo komi na dogo kuwaje hege bambuale. Sale pute kwa kangindia ima diamo kone delinga binyago. Diamo kone delinga tini diamo kone delinga binyago. Sweet Elizabeth, but where did you go? Oh, Ruji, sing on, boy, sing. I say, Elizabeth, but where did you go? Come back to your loving Roji, yeah, blacky boy, Roji. Don't you listen whatever they may say. Come back to your loving Roji. I am deeply worried at heart, 'cause the girl I love so well, my friend has snatched from me. Now I scarcely know what to do. Better hang my head and cry for my lovely Elizabeth.
that's beautiful.
Isn't that lovely?
Absolutely
So-
beautiful.
This particular night, then, in front of hundreds of Sierra Leoneans at this celebration, and I think King Masco was there that night. But a load of people were playing that night, and he came on, and he started to speak, and he said, "I'd like to, this is for all the Sierra Leoneans here tonight, and also for all the Sierra Leoneans back home."
Hmm.
And then he spoke in his own language, and I want to greet you all and thank you all with this song. And he went, "My lovely," and the entire audience stopped and went, "Elizabeth!"
Wow.
He started to sing, "I am deeply worried," and the whole crowd stopped and sang every note, every syllable along with him.
Wow.
He sang the first verse, and then I could see he was, how does I can't even.
That's right.
And I could see he was in such shock. Start singing the second verse, something. He couldn't even, he went blank. What's the second verse? What's the second? And then he starts singing the second verse, and they sang along with everything, including the ni na 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 ni na 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 na. The look on his face, because he was used to being on the bus and not being recognized and not being appreciated, playing to people in restaurants that weren't listening to him, having terrible times, and then he was there with his people, and he suddenly remembered who he was, how important he was. And, you know, they say about certain shows where he could have walked over the blanket of love that had been spread out at his feet. And he finished, and everyone's on their feet cheering. The roof was raised. And I was sitting inside of the stage, kind of tears, and just going, yes, 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 because I could see how much he'd been struggling in London, the weather, the this, the that, missing home, missing his family, missing, yearning. Yeah. Suddenly he was in the zone, and he said to me, and then the band came on, and he played with his band, and you know people started milling around and drinking and dancing. And it was good. Yeah. But he said to me, "Look, I should have just gone on and done all the old stuff on my own." So,
should we play another track? Because we're talking about one that was so a sad story for him, but again, what an amazing song, my lovely Elizabeth. Yeah. Should we play "Baby Left Mara"? You know what Mara stands for? Well, I mean, of course, you're a salon man now, isn't it? So.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. It's actually on the list of.
By the way, we are live on YouTube for Fefferity Radio, right?
Baby left Mara, Mara no go do. Baby left Mick no do. Too much Mick, go spoil your loco. I tell you, baby, Mara no go do.
Beautiful.
So that's the song.
Afternoon and welcome.
I think we should hear Roji singing it.
Absolutely.
Let's hear the real thing.
Let's hear the real thing, man. That was James giving us. Yeah. Hear that. Beautiful.
Baby left Mara no good oh. Baby left make no good oh. Too much make go spoil your luck oh. I tell you baby Mara no good oh. A week ago, I tell you I love you. You begin look me from head to foot. You start for melt like butter on a plate. You say we go see, you don't look me again. Yeah, baby, I'm sorry for you. Yesterday evening, you meet me in a dance. You see me, baby, if I pass you, he get more to car, he get money. You look and so you begin jealous. so tear, you start to cry. I'm sorry for you, you miss Roji. Baby, I'm sorry for you, you miss Roji. I'm sorry for you, you miss Roji. Baby left Mara, Mara no guru. Baby left Mara, Mara no guru. Baby left Nick no guru. Baby left Nick no guru. Baby left Mara, Mara no guru. No guru.
Hear that bass there, right? Oh my word. I mean, it's such a really amazing musician. And we're talking about a legendary musician from Sierra Leone, S.E Rogers, commonly known as Solomon Ernest Rogers. Passed away here in the United Kingdom, 1994.
30 years ago today, and
That's right.
he'd been in a coma or a vegetative state for about 10 days. Maybe we should just get the sad bit over, but this is
I mean, we can come to that later on.
Let's talk. Well, let's go back to that record, because that was he put a little band together. He was putting musicians together to play with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to bypass the situation where the record companies like EMI or whatever, EMI, as the the Sex Pistols made that record about them, all kind of angry about, perceived being ripped off by the big record companies. He decided I'm going to set up my own record label. And so he got recording equipment. I think they recorded at the Clubhouse, possibly, in Sierra Leone. That's certainly where they rehearsed. And he just would get musicians together and get his own microphone, source his own material. And he even sold these records out the back of his Jeep. He'd go around like an ice cream man. And
That's
it was like a cottage industry. Now, I don't know, I could be wrong, but it's possible that he's the first person in the world to set up an indie label. Really? Because this didn't happen until until the 70s in England. A friend of mine, I think, it was the first punk album, self-released, self-recorded in his front room in Wimbledon. Adrian Borland was a friend of mine, and his dad, rather than saying, give all this music up, son, go and get a proper job, he said, well, what we could do is we could get some recording equipment and install it here. So this was in my hometown in the 70s. So the neighbours, luckily, I think they were deaf. And so this is like a punk band. But I think Roji did something similar where and you can see there's I think there's probably an image on the stick that I sent you. But it has his name emblazoned on the label.
Absolutely, yeah.
With the flag.
And it's such a fantastic record label, isn't it?
And
the green, white, and blue, right?
He got a really good sound as well. And a lot of it was very, the necessity being the mother of invention. He would just, and he had trouble with musicians. The guy that plays lead guitar on that, he was called Trouble Willie. Now, I have a feeling I did hear that wherever he went, there was trouble, and it usually involved a woman or two, or an irate husband, possibly, and that he was always having to get out of Dodge, and it was always, oh God, him with all his problems, but he played lovely guitar.
Yeah.
And then one of the guys that auditioned for Roji's band, the Morning Stars, was a friend of ours, Emil Ogu.
Yeah. I was going to say,
beautiful Emil.
We can give much more respect to the Sierra Leone musicians, Abdul TJ, Emil Ogun, Zozo Shuaibu.
Well, Zozo, I'd love to say. I'm seeing Abdul pretty soon at IB's restaurant. I'm going to go and hang out with him and draw him out, because we're going to do. The other reason I'm here is I'm trying to put together a live show to play this music.
Music has to leave, isn't it?
On the London stage, and get some people that he used to play with, like I saw Zach Sikobe the other day, brilliant cook as well, and he fed me, and then we played guitar in his back garden, and I haven't seen him for years, and he was brilliant. But no, Emil was 15, and he answered the ad for lead guitarist with S.E Rogers, who was a legend by then.
That's right.
And he went along for the audition, and he sort of stumbled his way through it, and he told me the story that he went back home, and he went playing in the yard, he played football, he did this, that and the other, like kids do. And when he got back home, his father said to him, well, you better pack your bags. you're going on the road with Roji. What? Roji, he's been here while you were out, and Roji gone around to ask permission. Will you let your son come and tour with me? And that was Emil's first big gig, and it would have been his birthday on Sunday, Emil. So
fantastic. And he did play that at Glastonbury, isn't he?
Well, his son played at Glastonbury. Yeah, he was in a cowboy hat with I think 2 hours. He'd had 2 hours sleep, and he backed Paloma Faith.
Also, I want to send a shout there to Bunting Cole of Zambia's Experience. You might call in later on. But should we play one of the the 45s?
It is election day. It's election day, and what I've got here is something from Roji's collection. This didn't make it onto the album that's just come out, The Further Sounds of S.E Rogers. I'm hoping there'll be a volume 3, but I do not want to have to wait 30 years for that. Thank you.
I mean, talking about elections, there's a flash here to say that the UK is about to enter a nightmare much darker than anyone yet realizes. So basically what they're trying to say here, this is Alistair, actually. He's actually talking on the UK Telegraph, saying that Labour landslide with Lib Dems as the official opposition will turn into a left-wing one-party state.
Really? That's going to be fun. I wonder what George Galloway will say about that. If you believe that, I have some seaside property here in Manchester I could sell you.
So it's going to be an interesting outcome later on as everybody, after 10 o'clock.
What a load of nonsense. I know people used to stay up and look at this. My headmaster at school used to, and I mean, I'm an old man. I don't really want to tell people how old I am, but when I was at school, we went on a school trip, and my teacher came from a mining community that had been decimated in the 70s and 80s by what was, and so we were out. So we'd gone to Trafalgar Square, we'd gone to Buckingham Palace, we'd done this, that, and the other, and we ended up at Downing Street, and we stood there. In those days, you could actually stand quite near where Downing Street, where the entrance was. And the copper came over to us, this group of school children with their teacher, and said, if you hold on a minute, she's going to be coming out in about 2 minutes. Ooh. So we stood there, and Margaret Thatcher came out and waved regally like this, and we're all kind of going, like school kids. And she got in, and then she got out of the car and started to walk towards us, waving, and we're all kind of going, and then we're all kind of very, very well behaved like this, because she gave us that kind of, the Darth Vader kind of. And my teacher, who came from the mining community, stood like this. Sir, aren't you going to wave at? I'm not waving at that pretty woman. Seriously. So that's how old I am. But
she had a really tough time, didn't she?
In those days, you had whatever you think about her. She really believed everything she said and did. And I don't think anyone now on either side believes anything. They just want power. And the record what we're going to play is about Albert Margay.
Yeah.
And this is a time when I think leaders, maybe there was belief and there was trust and there was hope. And it's a good record as well. So I'm told all I have to do
is to press the start button.
Very technical here. This is not available really anywhere apart from here tonight.
So it's exclusive here on Feferity Radio, right? You can hear that.
Oh, there's crackles. I love this.
This is classic from S.E Rogers.
Media brothers, media sisters, I mean all genuine Sierra Leoneans. Make we sit down and think back of all it don't do. All the many good things for blessed Sierra Leone. Salvat Magai, our Prime Minister. Salvat Magai, well done, Salvat Magai, the people's man. protected land, it no bill from passing into law. That we suffer by now. Sad bad my guy, well Billy Star. Sad bad my guy, well done Alban. When he became minister of education, he draw a policy where they now enforce. Blow the number of schools, the number of colleges. When he became minister of natural resources and agriculture, he draw up his scheme, including the Sierra Leone produce marketing board. Salvan Magal, Prime Minister, Salvan Magal, well done Alban. As Minister of Finance, he do well for we. Now change we money into loan and cents. What a wise leader, what a noble leader. In all the Prime Minister conferences he go, he done prove himself a worldwide hero. And now he done put Ceylon on the map. Salvat Magal, a Prime Minister. Salvat Magal, well on Alban. Salvat Magal, a Prime Minister. Salvat Magal, well on Alban.
Absolutely beautiful. We're reminiscing here about this fantastic man, an incredible person, and a really good man, S.E Rogers. Listening to and some of his tracks and having a conversation with one of the students here.
Well, I could never really work out what our relationship really was. Is it, fan, hero, pupil, teacher? What is this? And because he wasn't like a mate that I'd hang out with,
Yeah.
Let's go down the red line tonight and see if we can pull some birds, mate. He wasn't like that. I had to be very respectful when I went around to see him. And he was older than me. And he's, like I am now. It's time for my nap. I'm getting a bit tired. But no, that record's fantastic. And it's not really available anywhere. And the optimism in that,
You mean it's not available on record?
it's not available online, on CD. I posted it on YouTube. It'll probably get taken down by whoever has copyrighted the name Roji, Roji.com. I'll probably get sued, end up in a court somewhere, and I don't care because I think people should hear this music. But what he's saying about Albert Marga, he's put Sierra Leone on the map.
Absolutely, because he's talking of first Prime Minister, actually, who led Sierra Leone into independence.
And those lyrics about how he's holding his own, he's can make us all proud, speaking for us, and on the world stage with all the other leaders and all the conferences he goes to with all the other prime ministers, he's proved himself a hero. That's kind of sweet. And then just musically, brilliant rhythm playing. I think it's Emil playing the lead guitar, bit of bass, and then there's just a little bit of, the kind of...
Yeah.
Well, when Bunton Cole comes here one night, he can sort of help with a bit of that.
Yeah, I think he's... we're going to speak to him shortly.
But all of that, and just even the enunciation of the lyrics, Albert, you get the T at the end. He was meticulous, like I said, with his playing. Everything had to be perfect, spot on. And if you got it wrong, to do it again. Get it right.
Times have changed, isn't it?
Why not get it right? Let's have some quality.
Yeah.
And so he had his own record label, and he auditioned his own people, and he took a lot of risks, though. That was a very bold thing to do. And I think he went a little bit over the top on partying. He told me that when I met him, didn't drink, wouldn't touch alcohol, wouldn't smoke, wouldn't allow smoking in his flat. He had no smoking signs everywhere. And I found out years later that he'd had to kind of stop drinking. Let's just put it like that.
So when he came to England, that's when everything started,
he
right?
was like 43 when he decided to quit because he had to, and I was the same. It's interesting. I didn't know that about him. And he started getting into meditation. He never touched alcohol again. He told me there were only, when he was young in the 60s, when he was a pop star in Sierra Leone, he said there were only 3 times a day when I wasn't smoking.
Wow. Sleeping.
When I was eating, when I was sleeping, and when I was making love.
Yeah.
Like that. And you just picture he's got...
You want to see James' eyes.
He's got well, he'll tell you these things and you kind of be like, oh, man. But he painted a picture with... I think he decided that, like a lot of pop stars do, they maybe go a bit over the top. And he needed to kind of reevaluate a few things. And he also, I think, had some problems where I know he went off on a tour. And I think he'd overreached himself. I think he went to Guinea. Now, other people would know about this, like Follow Gruff, wherever Follow is. If he's still on the Hackney Road, I'd like to see him. Because he'd know the story of how Roji went on tour and then ran out of money. And Roji told me this story, and it's like something out of a film. I'd seen it was Boom and Bust with Roji. And he had no money suddenly. And the hotel, they seized his typewriter and his Rolex watch in payment for and then he was out. And he had to sleep under a tree for days and days, almost as a vagrant, with no way of contacting anyone, no way of getting home, on the other side of the continent somewhere. And he was just his wit's end. And the story he told me was that he wandered into a bar like this, and people didn't know what you didn't recognize pop stars in those days. You knew the records, like the people.
Of course,
the people in
there was no phone and pictures at the time.
But even the people in the audience in Leicester Square, they didn't recognize him. It's only when he started singing they went, "My lovely Elizabeth." So this is the cinematic moment, one of them in his life, where he went in and he needed some food and drink, and I get out of here because he probably smelt and everything. But a guitar. He said, "I'm S.E Rogers." Nobody believed. Yeah, of course you are, mate. Yeah, all right. Yeah. Somebody produced a guitar from the back room and said, "Okay, then." And he sat down and he started playing. And everyone kind of, hang on a minute. And he played. And they all, wow. Oh, my God. Suddenly drinks are appearing on his table. Food is put in front of him. He's given a room for the night. A bit of money to get home. His music saved him.
That's how music is, isn't it? Music saves.
It broke him as well because he believed in it so much he would invest a lot of money in things. If it worked out, great, like the record label. If it didn't, then he was really stuck. And
I mean, let's take a track because that's one of his challenges, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he, such as a brilliant musician he was, the challenges also was even greater. So this track I'm going to play is Do Me Justice.
Oh, I love this song.
I think this will talk about a lot of challenges as well.
Well, I love this record.
Oops.
Hey, honey, will you come along now?
Let's do that again.
Oh, darling, it's gone past midnight, and won't you do me justice now?
Okay, honey, will you come along now?
He could have been a good actor.
Yeah.
Can't you feel the night so very cold? The bed and blanket also cold. Hold me closer and put out the light and then do me justice. Oh, darling, please do. I said do me justice now. No
Absolutely beautiful, isn't it?
That's one of my favourites. I actually performed that with Roji. He said, pick one song of mine and then you can come on in the interval of my debut gig with the Palm Wine Tappers and you can sing a song with me. I sang it in English and then he sang it in Mende. We traded verses.
Right.
And I was speaking to Zach because Zach Sikobi was in the band that night. And I was speaking to his
Where was this performance?
It was in
Is it
Greenwich.
100?
Greenwich at up the creek. It's a comedy club.
Right, okay.
But I mean, I went up to John Peel and Andy Kershaw at Radio 1 and presented them with details of the gig. And they both played one of his songs. You could do that in those days. Go up to the...
Yeah.
And this was when Radio 1 had millions of listeners. And I went up and said, could you give this to...
Where John Peel used to promote a lot, isn't it?
Well, John Peel, I wanted to see Andy. And I said, look, could you give this... Oh, S.E Rogers, I love S.E Rogers. Well, would you mind if I played this on my show too? I said, you kidding? So I said to Roger, you do realise that not only have you got this played and the gig announced on the Andy Kershaw show, it's a debut of S.E Rogers playing with a band down in Greenwich. Get along there. So he was really happy with me for my promotion because
fantastic.
And so the place was packed.
Yeah.
And I was explaining to Zach Sikobe's son and daughter, charming children. He's a great family man, Zach. Very admirable. Cooked me food, and I was explaining to them that night. I was a very nervous 21-year-old, and I used to drink. I don't drink anymore, and this is why. Roji had said to the management, with the rider, the crates of beer for the band, you're not to bring them here until after the first set. You wait till the band's on stage playing, so at least we can have one set where they're not out of their heads drunk. So I'm waiting nervously upstairs in this club in the dressing room, like this, shaking with fear about, because I'm going to go on and perform with Roji in the interval. And somebody comes in with a big crate of beer and it's just sitting in the corner there and I'm on my own. Oh, maybe I'll just have one. Just,
Lord.
Steady my nerves. And
Yeah,
by the time
course.
I got down there,
That was necessary.
I regret that.
How many did you have then?
Too many. And it was just, I regret that, but you don't leave.
Especially drinking it too fast.
I was so nervous because I just wasn't used to it. And I didn't completely disgrace myself, but I wish that I'd done that sober. But there you go. I performed with them. We did Do Me Justice, and it's still one of my favourite.
Well, let's speak to
Bunsen,
after that fantastic story there.
Yeah,
a man who
Bunsen,
never
man.
drinks before he enters on stage. Buntin is here of Zambezi experience. Is that so, Buntin? You never drank, right? Before you entered the stage, right? Welcome to Feferity Radio, Sir Buntin Cole. Are you there?
Bunsen.
Yeah, I am.
We love
Yeah.
you,
I said you never really drank before you go on the stage, right?
I say, are you joking? I usually have my tea of 4 guineas.
Well, I remember a gig that we did, and I was helping you out from the van to the venue when we were playing in Hoxton, and you pulled something out of your bag, and you said, I'm going to just have this before we get in there, and glug, 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 glug. But I'll tell you what.
Well, that's what Charlie Wright, is that right?
Having Bunsen up on stage, it's a shame you're not here tonight, man, because you make it a party wherever you are, and it's always great to have you around. So
He's a fantastic man.
next time we do this, I'm just going to go and part of me knows we want to see you soon, Bunsen. Anyway,
Yeah,
man.
so Buntin, I mean, you've been listening to the conversation, and here we're talking about our very own S.E Rogers. Many people know what we now enjoy as Afrobeat, but before that it was High Life, and this whole thing started. Many will reference Sierra Leone, isn't it, as palm wine creators. In fact, we have the best palm wine as well. I mean, it's fine to say that. But we're here talking about a man whose legacies probably is not well known within Sierra Leone community. Is that right?
He was well known, but when he emigrated to the UK, after a while, people started forgetting about him because I think he came to the UK in the 80s and or maybe 70s. He obviously came to the UK to find greener pastures. The interesting thing is he actually achieved it posthumously because it was
after his death, that's when people tend to begin to, well, the world started appreciating the quality of his music, as James told you. But he was a brilliant guy. I was a child when he performed, so I didn't appreciate what he was doing then until later on, really. But he is one of the pioneers, you know. S.E Rogers, Ebenezer Calendar, Chris Dewing and the Okeliva Boys, then S.E Rogers, and then it became more of a dance genre when you had Dr. Olo and his Milo Jazz. Before then, you had only Gumbe, where people played with this beautiful, with saw, drums, again, and things like that. And on weddings most of the time, really. But S.E Rogers took our music to a different dimension. That is why for one, I love his music. You see, after a while, it became, well, like you said earlier on, not many Sierra Leoneans appreciate what he did because it was so long ago. Not because he didn't play good music, but it was so long ago. Added to that, new technology has changed the quality of his music. That's why these guys from America are exploiting him now. You see, what his son should have done was to engage with Sierra Leonean musicians, let them update the style of palm wine music, and begin to produce things along that line, but modernized stuff, really. And I really give credence to James, because James is trying to do it. But he struggles because it's not his culture, but the music he plays is good. I've played with James a couple of times, and I can see where he's going, and it's got potential. That is why when he came and called me a couple of days ago, I said, yes, once it's organized, I'll be happy to play with him, you see. Not only that, but when I was with Zambezi XP, I don't know if you look at your phone, you'll see that I've shared two of my tracks. The first one, which is Street Life in Freetown, is one I released just this year in February. And then another one which I released about 10 years ago, Jolly Papa. I've shared it with you. You probably might be able to find it. Yeah. They're all along the palm wine music genre. And what I'm doing now, late Emily you spoke about, when he passed away, because Emily was like a brother, I was devastated to the point where I just forgot about music for a long while. It's now that I'm picking it up again because I've been doing so many things. And now that I'm retired, I've got time. So I'm picking up my music again and going along with it. But S.E Rogers will always be a music icon for me and for a lot of Sierra Leoneans who are old enough to have recognized him.
Well, so I mean, you're right. I mean, 30 years on, I mean, you mentioned about the promotion of the music, but earlier on, I actually said as well, because of the culture, the music culture, and the way that we enjoy and receive music is always been protest music. One that the government, you say, people in authority never seems to stretch their hands and appreciate this talent that a lot of the older musicians have, because all the bands you've mentioned, other countries, they would have actually lift those musicians up, and still they would have had statues in their hometown, statues around the country, so that younger generation today will eliminate those and understand and continue to promote those kind of sound. But I think because this was never been encouraged, and most of the music is really about protest rather than about love or any other sequence, and just life in general.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Sierra Leone, we were 30 years ago, we were only about 5-6 million. Then relatively recently, after the Civil War, it dropped a bit, but now we're about 7 million. And the political climate in Sierra Leone is so caustic that the economic situation for a lot of people is so terrible that people are just protesting. Government after government, parties after parties are just letting people down to the point where there's a need for people to protest now. That's it. Compare Sierra Leone with Nigeria, where you had about 200 million people, and added to that, a lot of the Nigerian musicians who are very popular now with their new genre of Afrobeat, some of them grew up here in outside of Nigeria, but they embraced their culture, and they didn't have the political strife that they suffered in Sierra Leone. They're more savvy, they're more educated in music, more professional, so they know how to target international market. That's the other thing. So Sierra Leone is at its infancy now when it comes to playing music, worldwide music, to tell you the truth.
Well, I mean, you say that, but you know, the music has actually gone so far and wide. You know, if you look at Geraldo Pino, you know, that had his band and toured, you know, West Africa and came here in the UK as well. These music are been appreciated outside of the country by all others apart from us, right? And sometimes we don't even remember when they passed on. For example, if it wasn't for James, most of us would not be talking about Calendar Today, right? Because it's not something that we remember those of yesterday or those of old, the musicians that have gone on, you know, that have actually did a lot of their music have been sampled even without our knowledge, yes. Right? So is that sort of culture, isn't it, where we trying to survive today and never look back at what happened yesterday? You agree with that?
Yeah, it's a struggle for survival, you see, and probably a lack of exposure because like Geraldo Pino, who you mentioned, the late Bonnie Mac, who you mentioned, King Masco, the Champ, those guys are out. They left Sierra Leone, they come out, and that's where they started achieving success. You see, so the environment in Sierra Leone is not conducive to success for musicians, to tell you the truth. I think that's it. It's now, and even right now, they have a very brilliant musician, Solos Beat, who is actually, I would say, running a music academy in Sierra Leone. He's performed in a few of my songs, which I'll be releasing over the course of this year until December. That boy is brilliant on the keyboard, you see. And one thing I like about he does not settle down for protest music. Look at this other guy again, who was your DJ recently.
William.
Yeah, William is on jazz, and he plays some beautiful. His group plays some beautiful music, which I listen to, and I'm going to get that album as well. You see, CJ, Cecily Jones, is another one. You know, so there are talents. I would not mention myself because it's now that I'm beginning to promote my music. Most of the time, we were playing live music until Emil died. I forgot about it. It's now that I'm performing again. But I've played with a lot of those guys.
Yeah. I mean, also, I don't think we tell our stories. You know, what I mean, the musicians of yesterday, you know, because this is something I've been really keen on, for them to be consistently telling their stories. Because each time you tell a story, you will have something else to add on to it. You know what I mean? More will come.
Let me to one of my single, the single I released this February, Street Life in Freetown. If you play it and listen to it, you will see that exactly what you're saying is what I try to do. I try to refer to our music, and I told the history of the music since the 50s, 60s, right up to date, really, which people have mentioned, and I think they're catching up to it now. And
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm saying,
and then,
yeah, go on, sorry.
Yeah, and then about 10 years ago, when I released Jolly Papa, that's another song which I try to move away from that political influence, which I think is killing the creativity of Sierra Leonean musicians. Because we've got some brilliant musicians.
I wouldn't say killing the creativity. Mm-hmm. I think it's just diverting attention from what has gone on, and also diverting attention from what is Sierra Leone music. Because, all of the, I mean, Fela used to do protest music, but, when you listen to the foundation, you understand exactly, the culture is there, and he was taking from what has gone on. He even referenced Joado Opinio and so many more.
Yeah. He embraced jazz, yes. Look
and when he sings that sort of music, everybody around the world can also resonate with what he's saying. But in Sierra Leone, because they will call names, particular names of individual, then that music don't sustain itself for a long time.
No, that's very true. And that's the need to move away from that. We do discuss things like that in, the Lion Mountain Musicians. That's a forum in which I belong to. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I love being there. I love discussing things. But I wouldn't say unfortunately, but we tend to focus on the technical bit, skills development and all that. But because we've not played together yet, I think William Kleinbailey is one of the few people who has performed with other members of that group. I am another one. I've performed with Solomon Fatoma, who solos beat, and I've done a song which I'll be releasing soon with Collins Pratt. And that's the direction I want to go to, bring it out. And also, I'm also embracing Afro beat now, which I call Afro jazz. That's the direction my music will be going. Because my health has been sort of letting me down recently, I've been trying to bring myself up again to sort things out. And I hope I'll be able to pick up the strength to do that. But I'm doing fine, okay, you see. But you're right, I'm very aware of it. And I've moved away from politics. And I've done about 7 songs now. 2 of them has been released. 2 will be released in this month, one this month, one next month. The third one, which has a social implication, I sung it like I'm talking to a wife, my wife, who is not happy with me, and it's doing it. But anybody who listens to it will know that it's the social and economic climate I am referring to. You see, but unfortunately, the people are not subtle about how they go about their music, and that's what's compromising the quality of their music somehow. Bonnie Mac moved away completely from politics. The Champ moved away from politics. If he sings any social music, is to praise the country. You see, and another thing is the language. You see, if you sing in Mende or in Timini, translate it into English so that people will understand what you're saying if it's not in Creole, because a lot of people understand Creole thanks to the Caribbean influence among the Creoles, you see. So they need to sit down and think carefully about how they're going to organize their music, how they're going to manage it, and then before they can release it. But if we don't do that, we will not achieve much success, I'm afraid. We will not achieve much success.
James is here. You want to say something?
Yeah. James.
Well, health. I hope that your health is going to be... I've had a few health problems. I think the older you get, we're all going to encounter... I had brain stem surgery about four years ago, and then I had some cancer taken out my leg a couple of years ago.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. But I'm all right. Touch wood and whistle, touch wood. This is what happens. It was something that was troubling Roji. I think that was why he stopped the drinking, stopped the smoking, but I think he had some long-term health things. The thing that troubles me about anyone that's of a certain age is, still having to really fight to be recognized and to just make a living and to be a musician. Roji, the point in his life, you know, when I knew him, he really should have had a decent income, royalties, recognition, so that he could just, you know, relax and play a gig when he felt like it, rather than doing what he did, which was desperately needing gigs because he was so skint, basically. And going out and performing when he'd had heart surgery. And we'll get to that later in the interview. But that was something that troubled me, because there were certain events I went to with him where I was starting to see that he was really tired. And when I went down to WOMAD Festival, he and a friend drove us down to Brighton, and it was winter. It was a Christmas festival, and we went down there, and Roji played in a sort of side hall, and on the main stage at this event was Ali Farka, and he knew how much I loved Ali, and Roji had done his set and he'd done well, and I said, "Can we stay?" Well, you need to feed me, James. Could you go and get fish and chips for us? I said, sure. So he slipped me a £5 in those days, which I would have got change out of. And the wind and the rain and the storm, it's almost like the summer is this year, but in Brighton, where it's very windy. And I came back probably half an hour later, having been completely battered like the cod on, you know, trying to get to his fish and chips to feed him. So if you feed me, we can stay a bit longer and you can see Ali Farka. So I went to this chip shop, and I must have been a lunatic getting lashed with all the rain. And I finally got back to this conference center, where the hotel or whatever it was, where the event was. And I finally got back into the room and presented the fish and chips. And Roji said, there's no ketchup. I went, what? Goes, I can't have this without ketchup. Could you go back to the fish and chip shop and get me some ketchup, please?
Oh, no.
And because I loved him so much, and because he was going to let me stick around, I went and got some ketchup. So I looked like I'd been dragged through a bush backwards, and we all had some food. And then we went down to the main hall. He sat at the back, and I went to the front and looked at Ali Farka performing top of his game. Absolutely brilliant, packed hall. But I could see at the back of the hall, Roji was slightly head in his hands a little bit, and with the lady that had taken us down there. And I thought, we should get him home. I really wanted Ali Farka to meet Roji. They were my two. I loved them both so much. My heroes. I wanted them to meet each other. But you can't.
A lot of the musicians who came to the UK to settle, apart from Collins, the late Bonnie Mark, and maybe King Masco. Yeah. A lot of the other musicians, they came at an advancing age, in their 40s and 50s. Even myself, I came in, although I had been here since I was in my late 30s, but I did not go into music until some 15 years ago. And guess who encouraged me to do it? Late Emil. Emil played with me until he died. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing those shows, but no, so anyway, at the end of this particular event, I thought we'd better get him out. There was a huge conference center in Brighton, massive rooms everywhere, in a multi-story, huge place. And
it would be nice.
The little prayer that I'd had in my head, that I really wanted them to meet each other. Oh well, I'm gonna have to grow up. It's not gonna happen. And at the precise moment that we pressed the lift button, in the middle of this obscure corner of this huge complex, and the doors opened with my prayer in front of me. There's Ali Farka with 3 other people, his entourage, his musicians, and the person in charge. The timing of it, the moment.
Yeah, the timing.
And then his face lit up. Ali, because I'd seen him a couple of weeks before, and he went, and his face lit up like Andy Kershaw used to say, he's got a smile like Blackpool illuminations. And he stepped out of the lift, and we had this lovely moment where they embraced. And I said, my lovely Elizabeth. And so he knew who Roji was. Roji knew who he was. Wow. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Then we got in the car and went home. So that's the end of that story. But I just wanted to say that sometimes some really magic things happened to me from knowing him. But he was tired as well. The other thing they decided was that he would be able to play with the Holmes brothers from New Orleans. Because the people in charge of WOMAD thought, well, you know, they're all, you know, they should be able to jam together. Rogie didn't.
What do they call it? What does that group call?
The Holmes
call
Brothers.
itself?
The Holmes Brothers.
Okay.
They're New Orleans, blues, R&B. Yeah, man. So the idea was that Rogie would play a song and they'd back him up, and then they'd play a song and Rogie would play with them. Well, he didn't know their music at all.
Mm-hmm.
So he's up on the stage, and I can't quite believe this happened, but he looked really unhappy, and he just put his hands by his sides eventually because he couldn't play along with this New Orleans, and he just said, James, and he beckoned me over to the stage. He said, James, come here.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the lip of the stage thinking, is he all right? And I thought he's ill. He said, could you get up and play with them? I said, what?
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself on stage. Rogie left the stage, and suddenly I'm on stage, having just traveled playing with the Holmes Brothers from New Orleans and playing some blues music and thinking, I'm going to wake up in a minute. This is the weirdest dream I've ever had. And honestly, if I hadn't known the number of amazing moments that man gave me, and then he dropped me off they drove back. I thought, if he drops me off in Tooting Bec, I can get the bus. And what a wonderful night. Freezing cold, but magic,
the thing is,
real magic.
We can revive. Yeah, we can revive some of those music. But a number of things has to be done, first of all.
Yeah.
We need to have somebody who drives it forward. Most importantly, we need to add some authenticity in it, and we have to modernize it. I'll tell you something. One of the gigs I have been in, which you will be surprised to know, was that gig you, me, and Kweku, and that's your friend, did in central London. And you know why? Because the dimension my congas added to it, the dimension Kweku's keyboard added to it, and your style of music, and then we shocked the audience when I came in with my own strong vocals to end it. I can actually feel the audience waking up to say.
Well, I remember that because there were a load of girls who'd been in a private party in another part of this club in Hoxton. Glenn, who played guitar with us, decided not to come along.
Glenn,
so he pulled out, and I'm feeling like, oh no, this is all. But we ended up just improvising, and then these girls just appeared from out of nowhere, and they were leaving. They were absolutely plastered with their broken heels and their kind of all right, love it. And they came, and then they suddenly heard this African music that they'd never heard before. Yeah. And Kweku drove me back home that night, and I said,
I remember
that moment was when I realized, because I'd been thinking, why am I doing this? Guitar player doesn't want to show up, and Junior wanted to go home, and I thought, I've had enough of this. And then suddenly I thought, this is why we're doing this. Because these girls have
extended that gig on that day, we would have started building up.
I know. They said that they've never heard this music before, and they're hearing this for the first time, and it's felt like we should be doing this. Yeah,
I'll be more than happy. And not only that, but clients know of Lion Mountain musicians. We have some great musicians there. We have guitarists, if you want a guitarist. We have a keyboardist. We have, of course, Kweku is my friend. If I'm performing, Kweku is always ready to perform with me.
Quakes is great, I went and saw Zach Sikobe, Taxi
Yeah, we have drummers and everything else. So
he would be very keen. Yeah, he'd be very keen to come and play.
It's just a question of organizing it.
Well, that's what I'm doing. So I'm trying to get some.
Yeah, and equally important, to get sponsors. People are prepared to fund the project because now everything is money.
Well, I know that, but I mean, I can throw a bit of money into the hat, and I know that Jamie Renton is interested in trying to help. There's a lot of goodwill. It's just that.
Initially we can do that, but we put in a drive for it to start paying for itself. Because what I'm doing now, one of the reasons why you guys have not been hearing from me, I've shared a couple of my tracks. One old one, Jolly Papa, with you and Freestyle, and the recent one I made in February. I've been working on it, but I've decided not to do anything yet. It's because I've been involved in other projects. Yeah. Like I used to teach. So I've done a website
a
series of maths lessons, which hopefully will pick up when I start promoting it. And then I've been writing a sort of autobiography about my childhood. It's called Childhood Lost in Poverty, which I am going to start. I've got a guy who is a marketing specialist who is waiting for me to give him the green light so we can start working on promoting it, plus my music. And the reason for that is, at my age now, I'm living alone. I'm not living with my wife or girlfriend anymore. My kids are fending for themselves. I am thinking, what's going to happen to me when I'm too old to do things like that? I need something in place which will start paying me.
Well, I think also if you do the things you love. I was talking to my brother-in-law about this, and he was saying about the Rolling Stones. They're not doing it for the money. They're doing it because they love it. And if they stopped doing it, if they stopped doing it, it would be bad. It would be physically bad for them to stop playing and singing and doing their music. It's what keeps them going.
Yeah,
it's who they are.
Music is so low, definitely. Yeah. Unfortunately, people like my music really, and that's why I'm associated with a music forum really.
Yeah.
So definitely, I'm very much 100%.
Well, we'd love to see you, because I mean you're just a great showman, and you know the music inside out. And obviously you've got aspect. You know, I need to know what I'm talking about sometimes, because I was singing. I think the last time I was on a stage with Emil was you guys were playing at the Russet in Hackney, and it was a Christmas gig, and it was 10 years ago Christmas time, and I was playing with Fire, and we did a bunch of Roji songs, and then you guys played. But yeah, I mean, it just felt like we've got to keep the momentum up. Really, you know.
Yeah, I've shared my 2 songs with you. When you have time, listen to them.
Yeah, I caught that. I saw that on the way here. I was on the transport. Struggling.
I'm going to have you here, especially
well, because the other thing I should mention is that the guy that was playing with us, Junior Tomlin, you know, Junior's been in here to be interviewed about his incredible artwork, and I saw Junior a few days ago, the Tabernacle.
Oh, right, okay.
And I was sort of trying to look after my daughter, and she wanted to, you know, she was climbing all over everything. And he said, "Oh, last time I saw you, you were a tiny little toddler." But he's doing amazing artwork. But he played a bit of percussion for us. Yeah,
he's one guy I would like to associate with. Although I didn't get off on a good note.
Well, I mean that's by the by. It's just one of those things. That particular night at the Russet was a beautiful night, and
because I'm artistic as well, you know. I used to have a fashion designing business back in the early 90s. Yeah, I'll show you some of my designs.
Yeah, I think
I'm thinking once I finish all of this in a month's time, I should have published my book, and then I just concentrate on the music and the writing.
Well,
I am going to start producing stuff again. Fashion stuff.
The time is right. It feels like the time's right. I was going to start getting into this a year ago, and I've been talking to Freestyle, and then because my dad died last year, and I thought, okay, well now I can start. Man.
My sympathy made
he was great. He was a great fella. In fact, on the last night of his life, he called us over. I hope my mum's listening, and she won't mind me saying, but my father was 90, and I think he knew that his number was up, and he called us over. Yeah. And there were paramedics around the bed and everything, and he called my mum and me, and he said, I've got something very important that I have to tell you now. You have to listen. Please listen. We're both listening. He goes, I've left all the money to Battersea Dogs Home.
Come on.
He left us with a smile. So that's how I want to remember him, my dad.
Yeah.
And same with Roji. A lot of the story about him is quite sad, but there's a lot of smiles and a lot of, you got to smile about it all. So,
I mean, I want to say something, right? I mean, Bontini is here because... we're looking at talking about a man who has done great work. His music is absolutely fantastic. If you've never had, his music, you're listening for the first time, you're definitely going to fall in love with it.
Yeah.
But then, when you get the background of the country and all of that, it's quite a difficult one. So, Bontini, what would you say to this? Because, when you talk about Alifa Couture, and you talk about the Malian and Senegalese musicians, they're coming from a culture and maintained. So therefore, when you hear Sierra Leone music, you can't really pinpoint where he's going, where he's coming from.
Very true.
Is that what we are actually suffering from? Because we kind of deviate from the traditional cultural Sierra Leone music?
Yeah, it doesn't have an identity. Like if you go up north, you listen to the limba music. Limba has got some fantastic rhythm. Then you come a bit down, the Makeni region, Bombali, they have different genres. You go east to Bo, Kainlao, Eastern Province, they have different genres. And then the Creoles also have different genres. So, but people are mixing now. And
I think that's inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in fact, when you were talking about Roji, and obviously I'm not I'm not from that. I'm not from the culture, but I know that S.E. One of his biggest influences was Jimmy Rogers from the United States, the country singer, and a lot of Roji's music is very based on that.
Like country, country and western, yes.
It's got to be said. I've been listening myself to a lot of Appalachian music and banjo playing from. There's a girl came over. She's a teenager and she sounds like she's been playing for 70 years. Nora Brown is absolute. Nora Brown, astonishing, an old soul, and she plays all these things that Roji used to listen to. And in fact, because his name was Rogers, he was quite pleased, and he developed that yodel. You know, yodeling. You know, I can't do it, but he did that on a few of his records. And what he wanted to be when he was a little boy, as the song goes, I want to be a cowboy. And a lot of his playing, a lot of the music that he plays, I've got some recordings of him, and it's very much Jimmy Rogers guitar style. So it's inevitable. He loved music, you know, he loved music.
Maybe the answer is to play good music as opposed to cultural music. People can play their own cultural music, but it has to be good. It has to be.
I mean, there's nothing really bad about your own cultural sound.
There's nothing wrong with that.
You know, I mean, it's for example, you know, when I was on another station years ago, I did interview Baba Mal, and we're giving tickets to see Baba Mal, and the people that won the ticket, they came back to me and goes, Freestyle. I couldn't believe it. There were so many white people there. I says, there you go. So because
music more than we do.
I mean, also, we're going to be talking about the challenges of S.E Rogers, because we all have such challenges. I mean, I came here early 90, you know, and when I came and I wasn't here in the 70s, but I could just picture, you know, what was happening and how Africans were treated as a musician back then. Because when I arrived, it was not so much as bad, but our music was not played in West Indian parties.
No.
You know, and I find that really bizarre.
It's not Afrobeat is being played, and that's thanks to the Nigerians.
Right. I mean, people turn their noses off, you know, whatever type of African music you play. Probably you can get away with Soul Makossa, because then it had the Michael Jackson influence kind of thing on it, right?
Manu Dibango, Osibisa's music were well received as well.
Well, we're going to talk about that because, you know, what they didn't receive what they're supposed to have, you know what I mean? So that is another thing as well. But what I'm saying is, there was a lot of challenges as a DJ to start playing African music within those parties. And I couldn't understand why the rejection.
Don't you know?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, no. Now they're begging for it. It's completely different, you know?
Yeah.
But, I mean, understanding what I went through as a DJ playing music within our black community that wasn't really absolutely welcome, I could just imagine what musician that came here in the 60s and 70s went through.
I know. Well, Emil came here in the early 70s with Super Combo. They were living in Collier's Wood, but Roji was told that if he went to America, go to California and you'll be a star. You'll make millions. This is
unfortunately.
And he went out and he ended up selling pizzas, delivering pizzas. He couldn't get work, and when the call came through,
America is too big. Yeah, it's too big.
Well, I don't know. He went to California, and you know, but I think that sort of hippie era thing of let's all love each other, and you know, I think it was coming to an end, and disco was starting, and he just didn't. It just didn't happen. So when
had he chosen Maryland, he wouldn't have failed, because Maryland is like the African base in the US.
More, he just didn't. He didn't have the lucky breaks, and then he came over to the UK in '88 at the invitation of Andy Kershaw, who'd heard some of his '60s records. He played one of those. Huh?
James, what you've come up with, I think, is got promise. I'll tell you why. I told you I belong to this forum, Lion Mountain Musicians, which is a collection of Sierra Leonean musicians, and we're thinking of having a meet day in which we're going to meet and socialize. You've got musicians in Holland, musicians in America, musicians here, musicians in Sierra Leone as well. And I will help to promote that now. If Freestyle will help me, that would be great, because if we're able to meet, we just jam to, even if it's on a park, everybody go with their instrument. People begin to listen to music.
You can't trust the weather at the moment, but it's a great idea.
No, in the summer, yes.
It is the summer. It's the summer. This is what I'm trying to say.
Well, you made it sound like we're not in the summer.
No.
You can trust the weather.
Listen, guys, trust me. Trust me.
IBD is a venue we always go to, and then there's another one at Peckham.
IB sounds really good, but I'm just going to warn everyone in London that might be thinking of being out and about later tonight. It's going to chuck it down. You've got the rain, rain is falling
every
down.
event we organize, we think about the weather first, you see. And then, Alexis at 164 Southampton Way. And then there's another venue further down here. That's a nice area as well. Alex has got a nice backyard where people can meet and jam as well. What's his name? Abdul TJ. He knows those venues. Abdul TJ has played at Alex.
Well, I mean, I keep meaning to go and see him, but I think that he tends to be getting up when I'm going to bed. He's
TJ, I do not want to give him a bad name.
I love him.
TJ prefers to play by himself. You see, I have played with TJ. We've gone up to, was it Southampton? I drove. What's this guy's name? The Chant. He came with us. We performed for a big crowd there. I was on the congas. We performed there. But TJ, unfortunately, money does not stay with him. And he's got a very lovely lady who is comfortable.
I mean, Sabontin, because let's concentrate on the man that we're talking about today. But what I want to do, right, I want to, play a taste, because we're talking about Sierra Leone traditional music here. Yes, and S.E Rogers came from the Mende.
Yes.
And I'm going to play this track. This is an amazing album that were, produced many years ago. Music from the Mende of Sierra Leone. It's like an ethnic folk, combination.
Yeah.
So what I want to play here is one of the track that entitles a Mende talking drum. So this is very, very folkly traditional.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
Let's have a listen. So this is what the Sierra Leone traditional. This is a very great sample, right? So these were recorded late 50s, 60s. Well, this is just a sample of the Sierra Leone traditional Kelly. And this is the Wayama players, right? And this is one of the traditional folk sounds of Sierra Leone.
See, my feeling is that it's very, very good that this was captured and recorded Because the worry is, Alan Lomax went around America recording old folk songs and also people's accents, because over time those accents will disappear. Those nuances and those ways of doing things, there will come a point where it's lost, possibly, unless somebody keeps it going. It's like,
Adapt it, yes.
It's like any craft, be it sound or any craft. Eventually, no one knows how to do it anymore. That's what NASA says. We can't go to the moon anymore because we lost the technology.
Well, this is actually being played, and it's still being played, but the issue is, it's not being exported.
No.
For the world to appreciate it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sampled by others from different, maybe Brazil, somewhere else. But yet,
I think
we've not been able to transport this and sell it.
The thing with great music is you've only got to...
Hold on, Bunty.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, the thing with great music is you don't really need to... If you play someone something that's irresistible, they're gonna find it and grab it.
They'll find it, yeah.
True. It's got to be irresistible. Like Roger's music, when I heard it, I don't know where he is or who I've got to find this and grab it and learn it, get behind it and nurture it. So I don't know what. If you're saying this is still being played live somewhere.
Well, I mean, if you go in the eastern part of Sierra Leone, this is the kind of music that you will listen to.
Is that still the case right now?
It is a case right now, and also it's been sort of modernized as well. However, it's about how do we export this music to even our neighboring countries. That has been, I think, one of the main challenges.
Well, they need to want it. Really?
But if you listen to Juju music in the 50s,
I think the starting point to tell you the truth is the musicians who are more exposed, who are living out of Sierra Leone, who knows these music appreciate. If they're able to get together, they can begin to come up with genres that will be appreciated worldwide, and that's the most important. This is why I believe in this forum. I am a member of, really. You see, and you got certain musicians who you need, like, for example, I mentioned TJ, this young man, what's his other name? The guy who organized this show, Frank Jallo. This guy now is a producer, William Klein Bailey. Of course, I produce all my own music, really. Then you have Iroy Macaulay, who is a brilliant guitarist as well. We've got musicians here. You have Zozo, who is a master musician, a singer.
Is Zozo still playing?
I don't know.
I hope so.
He's produced recently. He played with Ayo a few years ago.
No, he's
and Zozo is a member of this forum I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, he was at that Russet gig, and he was also at Emil's funeral. That gig.
Yeah, we were all there.
And I was trying to persuade him to get up and play with us, and then he nearly agreed, and then he said, James, you should probably just do this yourselves. But I was very keen at that point to get him up on stage with us because he was in Roji's band.
Yeah,
and he really was a loyal, brilliant part of that outfit.
He's a brilliant musician.
And his beautiful voice as well, a lovely voice.
Yeah. So it's the musicians who because the Nigerians, the people who make their music popular are those musicians who were exposed. Yeah. And then gradually, even Stella was educated out of America, out of Nigeria. He studied jazz, and likewise Abdul Tijay. Abdul Tijay has got a master's degree.
He went to America, didn't he? Yeah, no, he's an amazing life, that man.
So you need people who can articulate this thing, organize it. We've got musicians like that.
Yeah.
But like those samples, freestyle you've just played now, if they have a database of those samples, people can play magic with them. Yeah, people can play magic with them. So no worries, it's a starting point and the organization.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you very much, Sabontin, for coming on, and we'll definitely feature your music, and I will have you anyway to talk about your latest production and the singles and the music that you're doing. All right? Thank you very much, sir.
Catch you later, man.
When the book is published, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
That should be very soon.
Yeah, would love to read it as well.
Okay, James, I'll have a chat with you later. I think I
Yeah,
need you guys to get
lots of
on with
love
it
to
now.
you, and see you soon, my friend. Thank you for being in
Thank
touch.
you. All right, bye.
Great, man.
Bye.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great contribution, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is another sample as well. This is music from the Hunters as well, you know. And this is entitled "My Friend, I Love You." I cannot tell you what the word for love in Mende is. Maybe it's something else, because I don't think they have such, a word. But yeah, being kind or being good, something like that, is all part of the love. Yeah, because that's what they always said to us: be good. You know what I mean? That was behave yourself.
That's what Ian Jury used to say. I don't believe in God, but I believe in good.
Yes.
It's practically the same word, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got because talking about Sierra Leone, these are all sort of traditional. Just to go back and get the feel of these traditional music, because then people hear a lot of these artists today, and you kind of wonder if that's Sierra Leone music.
I think that there are certain people, like you mentioned, Calendar, and I know that without Calendar, there would not have been an S.E Rogers.
Well, let's take a listen now to one of the Calendar songs,
in the same way that there wouldn't have been a Muddy Waters without Robert Johnson. Really, or Elmore James was doing Robert Johnson, but with an electric guitar. And when I heard Calendar, and I'd said to Roger, I can't find any of his music. He said, well, I'll record one of his songs. So he recorded Fire, Fire, Fire. And sang it with the song Lumley, on board the bus to Lumley. Yeah. He joined those together, and now when people sing the song, they do that. They thread those two songs together. Yeah. But that was the only way I could hear the song. And the girl Elizabeth, my lovely Elizabeth, her name was Zuma. And whenever Roji was performing Fire, 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 he'd go, Zuma, 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 Zuma. Just as I know what you're still in love with her, aren't you?
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it? But Calendar music was referred to as Gumbay, the Gumbay style, which is a more folk. Maringa. I think that's what most people will know Sierra Leone for as a Maringa music. But this one we're going to play from Calendar is Bondo Debul, Go
great.
Walk.
Yeah, okay. Very crackly.
Yeah, I mean, they always play this in weddings and...
it's the surface. The surface noise is... It's quite a lot of surface noise on this.
Yeah, but this is actually a female masquerade. Bondo is a sort of like a ceremony for the women, right? And I would have loved to maybe get into the head of Calendar because the Bondo society is very, very serious, right? Men don't interfere. But this music, it became so popular that, people sing it as a jolly sort of kind of style. So beautiful there, isn't it?
Oh, I love it. I was just saying
Ebenezer Calendar.
that guy's a giant, and you can't find his music anywhere, in any form, online, anywhere. It's terrible. He's his music is essential.
Absolutely.
And without him, there wouldn't have been S.E Rogers.
And that's why, as a
electrified the
country
music.
as well,
Yeah.
needs to recognize these musicians that we're talking
he's a
about.
giant. He's absolute, and the records are great. The songs are great. He was a brilliant performer, and he travelled like Roji did. Roji took the music to America with a performing troupe. Before he moved there, he travelled. He wanted to spread the word, and Calendar did the same thing. I was just saying to you that he performed in London, Calendar, in '65, and he was at I think the Festival Hall with the dance troupe, and he was jumping around, and he injured his leg really badly, so he was lame after that. And I think one of his legs was shorter than the other anyway, and he ended up not being able to perform because in later life, his legs, he couldn't walk very well.
I mean, also, we're going to play one of his one as well, Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, Dry Bonga Gomacha.
Well, if we play a little bit of that, it's to illustrate what Roji did, which was an incredible innovation. And I don't even know if he realized, just like Bob Dylan electrified American folk music, literally with an electric guitar, and the Fairport Convention over here with all the English, Irish, Scottish, Welsh folk songs. Let's do it with the band, and they did it with electric guitars and bass, and you got folk rock, and it's a whole genre. And Roji did something as important with the traditional, this kind of merengue music. Listen to this, and then I'll play you. Oh, it's lovely, isn't it?
This goes on well.
Oya Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumachamu. Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumachamu. You money for cook, you don't know for cook, ya. Give you yabas for trading, you don't know for manage. Give you bunga for sell, you don't know for kitchen, yo. Oh, Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumachamu. Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumachamu. Oya Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumacham, sure. Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumacham. Oya Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumacham. Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumacham. Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumacham, fine. Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumacham. When me give you cuckoo for cuckoo, you don't know how to manage. Give you pitas for awesome, you don't know how to wash 'em. Oh, ya Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumacham. Lily Pepe and Lily Salt, ya, Gai Bonga Gumacham.
Beautiful. Wow.
You're listening to Freestyle on Feferity. You're listening to Freestyle on Feferity. See, that's how it goes. He used to make
I'm going to cut that.
He used to make up different.
I'm going to click that.
I'll do a jingle for you. But he used to sing different lyrics to the songs. He'd have a staple bunch of tunes, and then and what Rogie did, I mentioned that I met Constance Cummins, John. Rogie's one of the weight keepings.
Yeah.
And she was a beautiful,
prominent,
dignified, lovely
woman.
Well turned out. Everyone was, wow, here she is, and she sat. Wow, what a great thing for me to have met her. And the record that we played for her when she came around was a record that Rogie had made in the 60s when she became the woman mayor. And we're feeling a bit political today.
Well, it's a very
this
important political
I can't
day
really
today,
imagine anyone doing a fabulous, joyful record about Keir Starmer, or seriously. But here we go. Can I just play this? Because
this is
you'll recognise
about
the tune.
The Miss Cummins John, right?
Yeah. So you'll recognise the melody from what you've just heard from Calendar, and it's a lovely tune, and Rogie breathed new life into it with this.
Sierra Leone had made history in all Africa. Sierra Leone had made history in all Africa. Sierra Leone rejoices, Africa rejoices. Well done, I won my mayor, Constance Cummins John. Long live I won my mayor, Constance Cummins John. We must support her, we must respect her, we must think faster, we must work harder. If we want to make Sierra Leone a better territory, if we want to make Africa a better continent. Sierra Leone has made history in all Africa. Sierra Leone rejoices, Africa rejoices. Well done, I won my mayor, Constance Cummins John. Long live I won my mayor, Constance Cummins John, yeah. Sierra Leone rejoices, Africa rejoices. Sierra Leone is moving faster for all the better. Africa is moving faster for all the greater. Sierra Leone has made history in all Africa. Sierra Leone rejoices, Africa rejoices. Well done, I won my mayor, Constance Cummins John. Long live I won my mayor, Constance Cummins John. Sierra Leone rejoices, Africa rejoices. Well done, I won my mayor, Constance Cummins John. Long live I won my mayor, Constance Cummins John.
Hooray.
Beautiful, eh?
Isn't that nice? And I think big love to Iman,
Yeah.
Kwame, and Tess, because that was featuring Emil on the guitar.
That's absolute. Well, Emil Ogun.
Emil Ogu playing the
Yeah.
lead guitar there. He flubs one of the lines, but it doesn't matter. He was 15, 16.
Right.
And so he plays all the lead breaks as a kid. He had an amazing time touring with Roji. And then he came over to the UK. Roji was in the States. When I knew S.E, he was on his own. And he phoned me up once. I must tell this story. I tell it all the time. But this is because I was trying to work out the nature of our relationship over the years that I knew him. I met him. I knew him for 5 years, you know. And he phoned me up once, and he said, "James, and I'd played some guitar with him, you know. I thought, yeah, I'm playing guitar with this guy. I got something I need some help with, and I'm struggling. I'm working on something. There's a project I have, and could you come and help me with it? I really think it requires your expertise." No, I was 19, 20 years old. Grab my guitar. This is my moment. So I'm in Wimbledon. He's in North Finchley, and it took me 2.5 hours on a Sunday. And I struggled there on the bus, and I was doing that thing on the bus. I was like, "Come on, hurry up!" And I finally got round there, kind of, and knocked on the door, and he opened it. "Oh, you're all right." He goes, "Okay, great." You know, and I came in. I was all excited, and in my mind, on the way there, I was thinking, "We're going to make an album. We're going to tour. We're going to do this. This is great. I've made it."
Running ahead of time.
Blah blah blah. And so we're sitting in the front room, and "Do you want a cup of tea?" "Oh, no, not really." "Do you want something to eat?" "Well, no.
Looking forward to it.
Eventually, I just said, "Well, this thing that you want some help with." "Ah, okay." And said, "Is it up?" We'll go up to the music room, because he had a music room upstairs next to his bedroom.
Yeah.
He said, no, just come with me. And I grabbed the guitar. He said, "You can put the guitar down." I thought, "Oh, okay, maybe he wants me to sing." Yeah, as if. And we went over to this cupboard under the stairs, and I thought, he's probably got some recording equipment in here. This is going to be great.
I bet this has nothing to do with music.
He opened the cupboard. And there was a Hoover.
Mm-hmm.
And next to it was some Hoover bags.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Well, my problem is this. I bought these Hoover bags, but I don't know how to attach them."
Those paper bags, right?
To the...
That's right.
And I just got on my knees. Literally, my knees buckled anyway. So I'm on my knees going, "Well, Papa, we just unscrew this." And so I showed him how the Hoover bags were. And then we went and we looked at some rubbish on the telly and had something to eat, and he fell asleep. And I loved him so much. It really didn't matter. But I was just, talk about being cut down to size. But I decided, you know, because we're running out of time, I want to just talk about the last, you know, year or so.
Yeah, we need to, because
he was lonely.
You know, a lot of challenges.
He was always lonely. He'd sacrificed family life and that kind of thing to pursue the music. He was always, this is soon, I'm going to make it. It's going to happen. They want me in London. And he came to London, but the gigs dried up. He didn't really know where to go. He lost the house in North Finchley. And one of the conscientious things he'd done was to collect books, hundreds of books. And he was asking for them at gigs and on radio shows. "Send me all your books." Because he had a backer who was going to send them to Sierra Leone, to the schools and colleges, because he knew that if without education, the future of the country was in trouble. These kids needed to have education.
Sure.
And the backer pulled out.
Wow.
So he was left. He had to rent a 2-bedroom flat, 1 room for him, 1 room for all the books. And I went to see him in Forest Hill, and his head's in his hands, and he really looked unhappy. I lost touch with him for a few months. I had a difficult year, 93. And I decided, of all the people I know in my life, he's somebody that represents good to me. And I need that in my life now. And I went round to see him again. And "Where have you been?" You know. And he was living in Catford. And
Is it because you had your own personal challenges
stuff
as well?
going on?
Yeah.
You know, and I was doing different kind of music and stuff, playing a bit of folk blues, you know, Bert Jansch and all of that, John Renbourn. But I decided, I want to get him back in my life more. I want to go and help him. And I was that much older. He had a lovely wife with him, Cecilia, who I'll be seeing soon. And they had a lovely marriage. She's a beautiful woman, very kind, loving, supportive. She cooked for us. Normally he cooked and presented. And so she brought food in. And I thought, I made the mistake of thinking, I don't have to worry about him anymore. He's all right. But I had a feeling that there was something wrong. And I couldn't put you have to trust your instincts. And my head was saying, oh, don't be stupid. At the end of the visit, I said, you're okay then? He goes, well, I have to have surgery. I goes, what? Surgery. And I thought, oh no. And then he said, my leg. They have to, and I thought, oh, it's all right. It's just his leg. They have to take a vein out of my leg and put it in my heart. Oh no. So he was going to have heart surgery. And in those days, I mean, they've really made great progress with that.
Yeah.
They put stents in now, but in those days, you took a vein out of the leg and put it in the heart. I had no idea that he had a problem, but I'd seen him be, and Zach was saying the last time he saw him, he seemed very tired suddenly. But he had one last trip to Sierra Leone. Thank God. End of 93 into 94. He was going to go for 2 weeks and he ended up staying for 4 or 5. And he saw in the new year in Sierra Leone. He took Emil with him and they performed there. And he saw the new year. They did a New Year's Eve gig.
Mm.
And Zuma, my lovely Elizabeth, who turned up at that gig?
Zuma.
Yeah. And he showed me the video. And they're all crowded around at the end, his friends, his musicians, family members. And he said, you see her? That's her. But he was all right because he had his beautiful wife with him at home. And I was phoning her, when's he coming back? Oh, he's delayed. He's staying a bit longer. And then he had this surgery coming up. And that would have been around sort of April.
Right.
And I remember going to St. Bart's. When I was on the bus just now, it goes there. It's near Spitalfield, Smithfield Market. And I just thought, I'm going to go. And I went every day pre-op and hung out with him. And there was, he said to me, I said, well, I better be going now. You got your operation tomorrow. And he said, well, please stick around. I like your company. Wow. And he's still my hero, right? At this point. So we sat alone in this television room and we watched an Elvis film together. And I thought, I'm sitting with this guy is greater than that guy on the screen who was my hero when I was a kid. And I'm sitting with this guy. And he was worried. And I thank God for something. As I was leaving, I put my arms around him and I told him, oh, I'm going to cry. I told him that I loved him. You have to tell people. If you love someone, you've got to tell them. And it doesn't matter if they throw it back at you. You have to say. And I'm so glad retrospectively that I did that and I had that moment. Then I saw him afterwards and he looked. And he had a little gathering at the house. After the operation, and he had a new album coming out. It was called Dead Men Don't Smoke Marijuana, and he said, I don't want them to call it that. I have a bad feeling about that name. I want it to be called Morning, Noon and Night, but they'd printed the sleeves already. Yeah. There we go. It was a great record. Emil's playing on it. And we had this gathering, and I went round to see him. And I was probably, hungover in those days, and I turned up a little bit late. And he had all his family, all these people in this flat and friends and everything. Kids running around. It was a nice atmosphere. And he'd recovered seemingly from this operation. And a couple of people were looking at me a bit funny. And the next time I went back to that flat was for a wake keeping because he died. And this lady said to me, James, we were looking at you. I'm sorry, I was a bit funny with you, a bit off with you. She said the reason was that he'd said, James is coming. When we were there. James is coming. And we said, who's James? He said, James is my son.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's incredible. And the amazing thing.
To hear that then, when he's gone, it was like, that's what the relationship
That's how he felt about you.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
I got that answer a little bit too late, but I'm so glad that she told me.
The important thing, especially telling the story of S.E Rogers as one who has a first-hand, there are many more people that would tell, their side of the story. But the amazing thing is, I'm watching at you, and people are going to be looking at this on YouTube again, listening to you, is that the focus and attention that you're talking, telling the story of S.E Rogers.
Well, I'm reliving it now because
exactly. This is what I was going to say.
It still hurts.
Compares to, because all those experiences, moments that you shared was not with a phone, pictures at all. This was with your memory, was something very personal, and it was everything was calibrated, isn't it? Into this sort of like experience that will never be sort of like substituted for a photograph. Because what you've done today, you've actually painted a real photo and picture. And the way you're telling it, like you said, you're reliving that story. And you're giving us an insight as well into every movement and moment that you shared together.
Well, it's a very bittersweet thing, but I wouldn't still be talking about it 30 years later if it wasn't really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, most of us, if we're telling a story now, 20 years later, probably we'll have to consult our photographs, our images. He
means more to me now than he did then.
So it was a really beautiful thing, isn't it, at that time where there was not a lot of, let me take a selfie. Even when you came in the studio and you brought me the vinyl, I said, let's go on. I mean, straight away I went to my phone, right?
That's all right.
And
I recorded. I've got a few photos. There's one up there of his 65th birthday. If you pop into that, I've got the really loud shirt on and this orange hair. It's ridiculous. But his brother James had turned up from Liberia because he'd gone to Liberia, and then he ended up in the States. And then his nephew's in the picture as well. It was his 65th birthday, and he's cutting the cake. And I remember that's a nice memory. I had some really nice times with him. It's a very sad end, and 5 years when you're that age is a long time. And I really did think that he'd be around for at least another 20 years. So for that to happen at that point in my life was, it was bad. And then his poor widow, and she struggled. Her daughter died, and so she's raising her grandchildren as her own, and and then his daughter Messi, who I have not seen for 30 years. I have to see his daughter. We really need to talk to each other and
that would be really good.
Communicate, because there's a lot of confusion and a lot of. It was just so awful when he went, and now look at it. His music is in feature films. It's as the credits are running. You can this young band playing the music. People are hearing it. It's gonna have it's not over.
Shall we play one more?
Not over yet,
not by we're gonna end with S.E Rogers, but for now that was a popular track by Ebenezer Calendar. I mean, if you don't mind,
please.
Because this has been sampled by a lot of African bands as well as Osibisa.
Fire, 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 my fire, they come, baby. Fire, 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 my fire, they come. I want to see my loving boy I love so well. Fire, 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 baby, oh fire, they come.
Feferity Radio, your nostalgic station.
Fire, 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 my fire, they come. Fire, 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 my fire. Oh baby, I want to see my loving boy I love so well. Fire, 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 baby, oh fire, 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 my fire, they come. Fire, 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 my fire, they come. Baby, I want to see my loving boy I love so well. Fire, 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 baby, oh fire, they come. Da 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 da, 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 da 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 da. Fire, 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 my fire, they come. Fire, 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 my fire, they come. Oh baby, I want to see my loving boy I love so well. Fire, 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 baby, oh fire, they come. Pa 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 la, pa la lam pam, pa 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 la, pa la lam pam, pa 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 pam, pa la lam pam, pa 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 pam. Fire, 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 my fire, they come. Fire, 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 my fire, they come. Baby, I want to see my loving boy I love so well.
Well, that is amazing there. Calendar, Ebenezer Calendar with the most popular track that is being sort of like remixed.
Well, Roji did that. Roji recorded a lovely version of that, and he performed it well.
That's right.
And that was before I was, in fact, the last time I saw him when I went round to the flat, I actually they just put out an Ebenezer Calendar CD. And he did, when he listened to it, he did what I've just been doing.
That's
he started
right.
crying.
Absolutely. But it's a joyful story. You've kind of like, I think you've raised him up again from the ashes.
There's a lot of love.
But let's go through some of the, 45s that you brought in. What is that you've lined up for us?
Well, this is my favourite of his songs.
Yeah.
My favourite song is, and again, it's on this new release. What they've done, I don't know if there's a camera nearby for all you YouTubers.
Yeah.
Because we had
that one over there.
Is that a camera?
Yep.
What we had, just doing my little bit of promotion for Mississippi Records, a great, brilliant label. They release a lot of folk, rootsy music, Roscoe Holcomb music. Well, they just put this out. It's been 35 years waiting for this, volume 2. And we're going to play this song off the original vinyl. What they've done, like I've said, is they've managed to remove the surface noise. But as the late, great John Peel said, because the people at Radio 1 had a go at him for playing vinyl when CDs came in. So he had a meeting. Well, I was called before the board of Radio 1. And I said, now look here, you young whippersnappers. I'm old enough to be your father. And in the case of some of the uglier ones, I probably am. Listen to me. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, life has surface noise.
Wow.
And that shut them up. Yeah. So we're going to hear, shall we play it?
Yeah, definitely.
This is my favourite. Well, I mean, it's hard to pick a favourite, but volume 2, you'd probably have to go to Honest John's at the top of Portobello Road to get a copy, because I can't find, again, you can't find this music anywhere. Honest John's is a great record store just near the Westway, Portobello Road. In fact, while we're doing this will get you completely demonetized. And
James is going through his bag, I don't know.
Honest John's
Records, okay.
That's where you'll get a copy of this, because you won't be able to find it anywhere else. This is the original vinyl from Roji's collection.
Let's hear it.
And he's... Listen. There he is.
Yeah, I no laugh.
Bruh. Laugh, bro.
Sheep head and goat head not to one. As trusses pass trusses, na so man pass man.
Bruh, not true. Rope no fit fall neck. I make them put on 9 foot.
And goat head, all not to one. As a sheep head and goat head, brother, all not to one. Fall head and dog's head, all not to one. As a fall head and dog's head, sister, all not to one. Wait till you be me, no, not to so it be. I say wait till you be member, brother, you don't disappoint. Oh yeah, oh, oh yeah, oh, oh yeah, oh, I'm sorry for you. Oh yeah, oh, oh yeah, oh, oh yeah, oh, I'm sorry for you. To Murray man, for make it damage me for life. He might charge you 40 pounds of bush money, you know able for pay the money. You go pledge some of your property, just pay the money. And then the Murray man tell you, say, you want 100 pounds for the work. And now you look up, you look down, but to side the money there. And now you sit down in a corner, you start to cry, brother, and I did me sorry for you. Oh yeah, oh, oh yeah, oh, all not to one. I say pussy and doggy brother, all not to one. Trusses past trusses, I saw man pass man. You remember say, you go headward for conquer me. But after all you find out, then you don't disappoint. Oh yeah, oh, oh yeah, oh, oh yeah, oh, I'm sorry for you. Oh yeah, oh, oh yeah, oh, oh yeah, oh, I'm sorry for you.
Such a beautiful,
Doesn't get
beautiful
better.
track, isn't it?
Doesn't get better than that.
No.
That's just gorgeous, isn't it?
Well, I mean, there are more tracks, I mean, we can sample from Ebenezer.
This story I know about one woman where go keeping company man. Well, the wife can't get from nobody's. So one day, the wife and cousin gonna market, and a day they meet this rogue woman here. Before this wife, they try for point this woman to the cousin, so now this woman come out and a fool boy can be this wife. He said, no look me like that, no pick me like that, no way me like that. Would you not look me back there, waiting I do? You tell me before you go look me back there. They tell you, say, na me and you Monday. You forecast me before you go away me let that lady do ya. Me beg you, lady, I know way me like that. Baby, I do ya, baby, I do ya, baby, I do ya, baby, I do ya. Baby, I do ya, but we go to ya. Baby, I do ya, baby, I do ya, but we go to
Oh, James, we can listen to this all day, all night, isn't it?
Well, it should be available on the National Health.
Yeah.
In fact, the National Health should be available on the National Health.
Right.
Do you remember the National Health Service, free at the point of contact?
Oh, yeah.
That is a history lesson for all of you. This is the way we used to do things in a civilized country. So whatever happens tomorrow, whoever's Prime Minister, don't forget, keep love in your heart, folks. Listen to this music. Rise above it all.
That's right. Are you gonna play? Are you gonna play us out? Because this is also waiting, make you do me so.
I don't know if I can play that in this key.
No, I mean, let us play and then you're gonna take us out.
Well, I'll play a
You let me go, married me party. Whatever, wait to make you do me, so tell me, wait to make you do me so.
Oh, this is such a beautiful, beautiful a tribute here, and I want to say thank you so much, James, for coming in and talk us. You know, it's like you've kind of raised him up again and giving us an insight into the beautiful relationship that you had and the time you spent with S.E Rogers, which have brought you to many, brought you love from many Sierra Leoneans, especially the music fraternity, and also the people from Sierra Leone. I was going to ask you though, so James, have you been to Sierra Leone yet?
I have to go to Nigeria first.
Adeku
says I've got to go to Nigeria. She's going to.
Why?
She told me you've got to come to Nigeria with me. So, Adeku, Faith,
I'm sure. I mean,
No,
you know,
no,
there's
I've
a
been
lot of us
invited-
who welcome you in Sierra Leone,
I
right?
think I'd love to go there. I really would. I nearly went with Glenn Patnelli
Right.
from Team Salou
Yeah.
a few years ago. Again, I've got to see Glenn. You know, brilliant young player, but he's mainly producing now in Mitcham, and he's done really amazing things.
Yeah.
But I got to catch up with him. I've not been. No, it came to me. It came to London. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how lucky I now realise I was, because knowing this man was doesn't happen to people. You know, it's a very unusual experience. And I look back now and think, did that really happen? And of course it
I
did.
think you should go to Sierra Leone one
Well,
day.
yeah, of course I should.
And the whole thing would just make sense to you, you
It's
know what I mean?
it's
Especially
about
going
time.
where he
Well,
came
you know,
from as well.
My late cousin Emily, aunt from North Carolina. I used to listen to a lot of blues. Blind Boy Fuller from North Carolina. It wasn't until I actually went out there and listened to the music when I was out there, the humidity and the green and the vibe, man. Then you
Beautiful.
suddenly realise, okay, that's what this music's really all about.
Yeah.
So it's something I've yet to do. It's on my bucket list.
Okay. Well,
Okay, well,
I want to say thank you very much for coming in, Sir James, and I'm sure we're going to do this again because we haven't gone through even half.
No. There will be a gig.
But the stories is wonderful.
There will be a gig at some point where we'll all be doing these things
Yeah.
on stage at some point. It is going to rain tonight,
Oh,
I'm told, and I'll play you out with a Kalenda song.
right.
We've heard a lot of Roji song, but this is a Kalenda song done in a Roji style. It's well past my bedtime, by the way. I'm not
Me
enough
too.
now, but okay.
Well, I think today is a one-off where we can actually stay up till late.
Well, I'll play you out with one of my favorite Kalenda songs, and I'm sorry about my croaky voice, but here we go.
Exclusive here on Feferity Radio. James Walton Ingham right here.
Go home and come tomorrow night. Go home and come tomorrow night. The rain is falling now, my wife is at home. So go home and come tomorrow night. Go home and come tomorrow night. Go home and come tomorrow night. I know the rain they come, but my wife is still at home. So go home and come tomorrow night. My love, what's matter with you? Darling, what's matter with you? I know the rain they come, but my wife is at home. Then go home and come tomorrow night. Okay, darling. Go home and come tomorrow night. Go home and come tomorrow night. The rain is falling now, my wife is at home. So go home and come tomorrow night. My love, what's matter with you? Darling, what's matter with you? The rain is falling now, my wife is at home. So go home and come tomorrow night. Go home and come tomorrow night. Go home and come tomorrow night. The rain is falling now, my wife is at home. So go home and come tomorrow night. The rain is falling now, my wife is still at home. So go home and come tomorrow night. The rain is falling now, my wife is still at home. Then go home and come tomorrow night.
Feferity Radio, your nostalgic station.
Thank you very much, Sir James, and thank you everyone that's listening. And this show will be on YouTube forever. And we would like your comment as well.
Yeah,
if
go on.
anything you've heard that is really, touched you, and you also know of S.E Rogers, Ebenezer Calendar, or Sierra Leone music, you want to comment on there, please do. And I'm sure James will, if there's any reply, he has to reply. He will reply as well.
And if anyone knows where Everetta Davis is, who appears on this cover looking like one of the Ronettes, I'm told she's still alive and living in London. I want to meet her.
Well, definitely.
She was quite something, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you never know the wonders of social
Somebody
media.
out there must know where she is. And this is an iconic photo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's the one a lot of people remember.
Well,
of
when I went to
S.E
see Zach, I took round, I think I've got that guitar now. I've got
You got a copy of it?
Exactly
You
the
told
same
me.
guitar. Man, it sounds, and you plug it in, put a bit of reverb on, and it sounds just like the records without the crackles.
Try and make your way to Sierra Leone, and I'm sure you would love it.
You're trying to get rid of me now, aren't you? I'm going to try and make my way to the
No,
bus
you can
stop.
come back and tell more stories,
I'm
actually.
going to get lost on the way back to Wimbledon now. They got the tennis on. It's going to be full of drunken hurrah Henrys.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's quite the atmosphere out there.
Quite a racket going on. Yeah.
Yeah. But and Murray is not actually taking part in the singles, isn't it?
You know what? I have no idea.
Yeah, that's what
I'm so young. My father took me to Centre Court, and it was Borg and McEnroe, and it was just them warming up. My dad knew the people that worked at that ran Wimbledon, and he said, "Come and have a look at these two," and they're just warming up. And it was the year that McEnroe got knocked out. No, the year that Borg finally got knocked out by McEnroe. See, me na poor old man, no do me so. Seriously, I'm that old. But no, I don't even know who's playing tennis these
Well,
days.
also, I mean, looking at the latest on our general election here, well, I think the red is way ahead at the moment.
The what?
The red.
Well, it's not red, is it?
Eh?
It's not red.
Is what?
It's not red. There's two bands called Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, I've got them here.
There's two Labour parties, and one of them's no more, and the other one is going to be the government tomorrow. And they're chalking.
It's a kind of weird atmosphere, isn't it? It's like, it's. I think it is this sort of love-hate sort of relationship we're gonna go into.
Well, I mean, what you mean? I don't know what to say about that. I used to know George Galloway quite well.
We want to change, but
George Galloway
is that the
said,
change we want? Well, at least you want to
Labour
change.
and the Conservatives are two cheeks of the same backside.
Well,
I was saying to your friend earlier, if anyone came along that was really going to change anything, they'd finish them off, I'm afraid.
Well, one thing I'm happy about, the leader over there is a supporter of my football club. So, yeah, you go.
Okay, if we're going to talk about football, I have a good mind to walk out. No, I'm kidding. I'm only kidding, really.
Saturday's the day you wouldn't work out at all.
Well, it's going to be raining. But listen, I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
I know, Uncle Emil loved football. And when he was in the hospital, his friend bought the top in here. We wore the football top, and they watched the football together. And I got it when I was watching it with him, because it gives people hope and something to feel good about.
Absolutely.
And if anything that can do that, even if I don't get it, so what?
Yeah.
My mum tells me, I came home from school one day. I was young. She said, What team do we support? Because I'd been asked this all day on the playground. What team do you support, mate?
Yeah.
And she said, we don't do that. But no, in terms of politics, you've got to just change, and help your neighbours and your family and your friends, because you can't. What can you do? What can you do?
Absolutely.
You can do good things. You can help people, and you can make positive change, but it has to come from within. The last time I thought anything great was going to happen was about 8 years ago. I thought something great could happen here, but they wouldn't let that happen, and it's.
I know what you're talking about.
I don't really want to bring politics into this, but I think if the gentleman from Islington, Independent, if he had become Prime Minister, we'd probably, and it's not a nice thing to say, but, my mum used to go to the same church as Jack Kennedy, and she saw what happened to him. when he, because he was helping with the desegregation and unification, sort of working with Martin Luther King, and he ended up dead.
It would have been a moment, isn't it?
So I think that Jeremy Corbyn probably wouldn't be with us now if he'd become Prime Minister, I'm afraid. And he's doing all right.
You think so?
He's doing... is he doing all right? Yeah.
Yeah.
As an independent... Well, I think it's...
Yeah.
I'm glad he's still alive because he's all right. He's a nice fella.
Yeah, very much so.
But I don't think politics is a place for nice fellas.
Well,
not really. No, you've got to be tough as nails.
Yeah, you have to. I think
say it's really important to believe
what you mean in
to believe what you're saying. And like I said about Margaret Thatcher, I mean, I'm not here to say that she really believed what she was saying. And there are some people that just stick to their principles and they don't waver.
Yeah, I think the ability to convince.
And also to change your mind. If you can change your mind about stuff, it means that you're not a zombie. Reading an auto cue or listening to a prompter. You get asked a question and you go, and someone's telling you, well, Mr. President, you need to, what? Sorry.
Well, it will all be revealed, but thank you
we'll
very
see.
much.
Have
Tamara.
a good one, everybody.
All day,
look after yourselves.
every day, playing your favorite songs.
Yeah, sorry,
This
straying into
is
politics.
Fefferity Radio.
I shouldn't do that.